Yo, what is up, people? What is good? Yo, we are here randomly on a Tuesday afternoon because when random events happen, I like to be flexible um and do random things. So yeah, I reached out to one of my creative friends because I haven't talked to him in a while. I'm like, yo, uh are you available to come stream with me at some point this week? And he was like, he's busy. Let me he was like, he's busy and he doesn't have time. But then he just tweeted me out of nowhere, like, yeah, I got time. And I'm like, you know what? Let's go. So hopefully in a minute, a moment, my dude, Drew from Untitled Tech will drop in and we'll have a little quick chat. Haven't talked to Drew. I feel like I haven't talked to Drew in forever. CDF man, what's up, man? How you doing? Alex, how you doing, man? Good to see you. River, hey River. I haven't seen you in the stream in a while, but how you doing? Appreciate you being here. Cool Gamer, what's up, man? How you doing, dude? Appreciate all of y'all dropping what you're doing. Like, that's one of the coolest things about being a creator. Like when I could just randomly live stream and people show up. Because you don't know what people are doing on a day-to-day basis, right? I don't know what y'all were doing on your Tuesday. I just pushed a button, I hit go live, and I got people that show up. That's pretty cool, man. So I appreciate y'all. Jonathan, how you doing, man? As soon as this thing shows up, I will highlight your comment. How you doing, Jonathan? Appreciate you being here. But yeah, I'm having a random stream today because I'm hopefully we'll have a guest here dropping in shortly. But hopefully y'all are having a good Tuesday so far. I just got through doing some work for vidIQ, and now I'm just chilling, and we're about to do a live stream here. Still coming back for the lounge tomorrow night, but hey, we're gonna talk to my man Taylor the Tech here in a moment, hopefully, and then we shall be good. But what is going on? So I guess the biggest news today as far as tech goes is that Sony, for those of y'all who keep up with the gaming stuff, Sony has introduced new tiers of PlayStation Plus. I think there's like PlayStation Plus, the regular one, and then they have PlayStation Plus Premium, and then PlayStation Plus Premium Extra. They got like 3 different tiers of PlayStation Plus now, and that's all good and well. And basically, what they're doing is they're trying to compete with Xbox and Game Pass. They're closer, but they're not quite there yet, just because Xbox Game Pass still has one major advantage over everything that Sony announced today. And that is on Xbox Game Pass, Microsoft first-party games, the games that are made by Microsoft Studios, those games, when they come out on Game Pass the day they come out, first day one. Sony is not willing to do that yet, and their first-party games are not coming out on the service. Now, that's not to say that they'll never be on their service, but day one, they're not putting their games on the service because they make too much money from people paying full price for those games for Sony to put them on a subscription-like service like Microsoft does. Microsoft doesn't care because Microsoft feels like they're going to make the money back in the Game Pass subscription. Sony, they make the bulk of their money with people paying full price for their games, so they are not willing to put them on a subscription service day one. As long as Sony is not willing to do that, then Xbox Game Pass is still going to be the best way to play video games because, again, you got the Microsoft first-party games that go on that service day one. So I don't know if Sony's going to be willing to match that at some point, but until they do, the conversation is not all peaches and roses yet. Jonathan says, any plans to get an electric vehicle? Oh God, no, man. I don't have a garage, so I don't have anywhere to charge it, so I couldn't even do that if I wanted to. But it's pretty cool. I mean, I think it's pretty cool that a lot of auto manufacturers are switching to being electric by, I think, most of them are trying to get there by 2035 or something like that. So I think it's cool that that's where the industry is going. But for me, I don't have the practicality to have an electric vehicle right now. So that is not in my future, but maybe one day, I don't know. River says she's just chilling, working a bit until her next call in a bit. Hopefully you're doing groovy. I am doing groovy, River. Thank you. Speaking of doing groovy, my guest has arrived. So let me bring in my guy, somebody I haven't talked to in God, seems like forever. The man, the myth, the legend himself, Mr. Taylor Tech. Andrew, what's up, man? How you been?
Hey, good to see you. It's been far too long.
So this is why I love you, because you are like the only creator on planet Earth that I can literally have a random stream with at any time, anywhere. It's crazy.
Unfortunately, not last Friday, I guess. I was just not doing well.
No, it's cool because I remember I think it was an hour or two before I was going live. I'm like, let me see what he's up to. And because I know, like I just said, normally you're down for that stuff, but It wasn't no big deal. You were busy last Friday, so I'm like,
I
you know what?
try to be. I try
I'll
to
catch
be
up with him
down.
at some point. Yeah. So
Good
how
to
you been?
see
You been
you.
all right?
Yeah, getting by. It's a lot of busy stuff, but mostly good.
Good. So I mean, obviously we stay busy, so I can't keep up with everything that you're doing. But I
Sure.
think I saw a video that
Neither
you.
neither can I really.
I know, right? I think I just saw a video that you recently moved away from Starlink, right?
I am. I'm no longer talking to you via Starlink. I'm now on T-Mobile home internet.
Whoa, really? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, so what happened with the Starlink? Was it not just consistent enough, or what made you move away from it?
Yeah, it was kind of sad, honestly, because I loved the concept and I love SpaceX. I'm a big fan of them, and I like the idea that I could eventually take this dish, anywhere and have good internet. But and near the end of 2021, it was like the best it had ever been. Like I started in the beta in February, and then over time it was getting more stable. The speeds were improving, and it was I could do whole live streams on it without much problem. Something changed. I don't know exactly what it was, but in early 2022, it just started getting way, way worse than it even was on day one in the beta period.
Ooh.
And the upload not just slower, but got inconsistent. So when I would be live streaming, I would cut out and I would get pixelated, and it was already not ideal during the beta, but I was kind of willing to put up with it because I thought, well, eventually this will fix itself, and as they add more satellites, it'll improve. But it did not improve. So at a certain point, you just have to acknowledge, okay, they took away the beta terminology. So this is just full on the service. This is how they expect it to work. And I'm like, yeah, it's the download speeds were good. And it was great for just watching content and downloading large files. It was great for that kind of stuff. But I do too much live streaming for it to be stable enough for me. And back when the beta first launched, T-Mobile home internet was not a thing. I couldn't use it.
Mhm.
They launched that in my area near the end of last year, and I was kind of hearing about it. And I was hearing some spotty things. Um, so as soon as I found out that they had kind of upgraded their hardware, I was like, okay, it's only $50 a month. It's half the price of Starlink. Let me try this out. It's at least worth a review, even if it's not better. It's at least worth testing for a video. And after that, I was like, yeah, this is way better. The upload's faster, speeds are more consistent. It's a big. Usually, it's a lot worse in download, but I don't use that much download, so I don't care. As long as I got fast, consistent upload, that's what mattered to me. So I'm pretty happy with it so far.
Now it's funny that you say the upload speeds are more important to you than downloads. Obviously, as the creator, upload speeds are very important. So,
Yeah.
what are your downloads and upload speeds with T-Mobile? Do you have an idea?
It's so weird. It fluctuates, kind of like
Mm,
Starlink quite a bit. Upload has been pretty consistent though. It's pretty much every time I check it, it's over 40 megabits up.
okay.
Sometimes it surpasses 50, which I never got that with Comcast. Back when I had Xfinity, we were paying $150 a month.
Oh boy.
We never broke 40. So it's refreshing to finally get that. And download, I guess you're deprioritized to other T-Mobile users on the same tower. So at certain times of the day, it's below 100. I've at occasional times clocked it below 50. That's the lowest I've seen it get, is around like 39, 40. But other days like today, I tested it this morning and it was over 300. It was like 350, 360 download. So I was like, well, okay, it's nice when it's there, but it's not always there. And also my TV has been acting a lot slower ever since we got it. I don't know if that's just because the TV is old or because the internet is down throttling the TV intentionally, but it doesn't happen on any other device, which is weird.
That is weird. Man,
Yeah.
you are brave though for trying out Starlink for a whole year because obviously internet speeds are so important to creators, and Starlink
Oh
at the
yeah.
time was it was a wild card. You just didn't know.
Brave is a word for it. I would say stupid. But
Well, you made it work for a whole year, man. So kudos to you for putting
just
yourself out there.
just barely. Probably the biggest mistake was staying on Starlink while interviewing Marquez. That was quite embarrassing.
Oh
There
man.
were times he was cutting out and I had no clue what he was saying. And I was just like,
Oh
man, I hope
wow.
it fixes itself before
Uh,
he finishes his thought.
oh man, it's crazy. But yeah, you did. I remember back in the day you were trying to get him on a podcast, and I think you guys finally got him on a podcast. Nice.
Yeah, it took a while. It was just timing. It was kind of like this. I kind of emailed him last second and was like, "Hey, if you want to spare some chit chat time. I'm free. And he was like, I can do it right now. It worked out.
That is awesome. So I just watched one of your recent live streams, and I know
Oh,
that
cool.
you had the Mac Studio display and you took it back. What were your thoughts about it?
I'm still using it.
Oh, you still have it. Okay. Oh,
Technically.
yeah, you still have it. Okay.
But yeah, I haven't returned it yet. I've reviewed the studio display, and I've just decided that for that kind of money, it needs to get closer to my requests of like high refresh rate, and um that's the main one, just 120 hertz. Just because I noticed that on my laptop, my iPad, my phone. And if I'm spending 2 grand or close to 2 grand on a monitor, I want it to be that good. If it was sub $1,000, I could probably live with 60 hertz, but that's a lot of money to spend on a monitor and still be like, yeah, it's not quite that great yet. And Ross Young has talked about Apple's working on a high refresh rate monitor for later in the year. So I'm like, okay, I don't know if he's right, because I don't know how they can do 5K at 120 hertz with Thunderbolt 4. But if by some miracle he ends up being right, I'll happily wait just to make sure he's wrong or right. But it's been very difficult, honestly, to review the Mac Studio for me, because the main reason I got it was to try out the M1 Ultra, because it sounded so much, more power intensive, and it sounded so much better. Just have my M1 Max chip has already been absurdly fast. Combine two of them together, but all my export times and all of my intensive work I throw on the Mac Studio performs about the same as my MacBook Pro. I'm not noticing any difference in speed. It's probably because I record everything at ProRes, which I've read that it doesn't quite make a difference if you're working in a ProRes timeline. But they were doing all of this testing on a newer version of Final Cut Pro that's not out yet. And I've been waiting. I'm still waiting for Apple to update it. And I watched Max Tech's video where he was clocking and doing all these Cinebench tests and stuff with the M1 Ultra, and they're not maxing out the wattage. They're not fully unlocking the GPU cores or the CPU core. Like, it can go faster, but they're not letting it. I don't know why. They're waiting for the return window to end, I think. But I don't know really what to say for my review other than like, well, I hope it gets faster one day. But
So are you gonna hold on to it, or are you gonna return that too?
I don't think I can. I don't think I can, man. It's what does Marquez say? He says, don't hold on to a product hoping
Based
for
on what it
future
does in the
software.
future, right? Yep.
Yeah, so I don't want to pull another Starlink, where I'm like, well, one day this will get faster. One day this will be fixed, and then over time it gets worse and it doesn't actually get better. I kind of have a similar story with iPad OS. So
Oh God.
I want it to get better, but I don't think I should just commit to it and assume it definitely will if it doesn't seem to be. And also,
Especially as it relates to Apple. Like you said, with iPad OS, we've been waiting and waiting, and we're still waiting for iPad OS. So
exactly.
if the Mac Studio is performing just as well as your M1 Max MacBook Pro, then yeah, I don't think there's no reason for you to hold on to it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, it's nice to have that many ports on one device, and that's probably going to be the highlight of my review. Is like, it's all about the ports. That's what this is. But it's genuinely as far as Apple products go, I was kind of surprised how loud it is. It's
Really? Wow.
even at idle, even when you're not doing anything, if you're just texting or watching YouTube, it makes it. It's not like absurdly loud, like as loud as a custom built PC or something. But I'm used to most Apple products, I guess, for the last couple of years I've reviewed are pretty quiet when idle. Like, I can't hear my MacBook Pro at all right now. But when the Mac Studio is on, you hear it. It's the loudest thing in the room, um, even when you're not doing intensive stuff. So I'm glad it exists. I absolutely think there's a market for it, and I'm happy for the people who are getting just the M1 Max for cheaper now, because it used to be like the cheapest way to get an M1 Max is like $3,000, and it's a laptop. Now you can get it for $2,000, and it's a tower, so you can plug in a bunch of extra stuff and have additional ports where the MacBook is lacking. So it's not for me, but I appreciate it.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it was yesterday we got reports out of Bloomberg that Apple is thinking about making a subscription service for iPhone hardware.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts about this?
Uh, it's really depressing from a consumer's perspective, but it makes a lot of sense from the business perspective. I know like exactly why they want to do this because Tim Cook, of course, is trying to pivot Apple to be more of a services company, I'm sure. And he basically is seeing, I think, what I've been seeing for a while as well, which is every year the upgrades are getting smaller and smaller, and it's going to become increasingly difficult to make these super cycles, these big upgrade years. Like, I think the reason they didn't call it the 12s and instead they called it the 13 was because they knew we can't really do S years anymore because the design is just going to be
Yeah,
the same old thing repackaged. And okay, the notch gets a little smaller. Okay, now it's a big old camera hole. Okay, now it's a smaller camera hole. Now it's gone entirely. None of these things are going to feel major to the everyday consumer. So the way you get people into more like consistent upgrades is to take away that big upfront, like, oh, we got to buy a $1,000 iPhone this year, or is the new iPhone worth it for $1,000? It's like they want to avoid that big purchase. They just want you to think of the monthly cost or the daily cost. Even I remember Tim Cook in an interview being like, um, we think the Apple experience is worth like $1 or $2 a day. That's how he values it. Is like you use your phone every day. Just look at it like you pay for food or drinks, regularly every day. You buy such and such coffee from Starbucks or Dutch Bros. Think of your iPhone like that. You're paying $1, $2 a day just to have the Apple experience in the latest version. So they know they could probably sell people on that, like from Business 101, get the lowest price possible in front of people. It's not $1,000. It's just $30 a month. Just $30 a month for you to have
right.
the best iPhone ever. People go, okay, 30. I guess I can swing that. I could do 30 a month. So they're trying to disconnect people from that giant, like, should you upgrade? And instead of it's now like, oh yeah, no, you just get a new one when it comes out. That's what part of this membership is all about. And because Bloomberg said this would not be like a financing thing like the Apple Card, where you are working towards ownership. After 12 or 24 months, you own the phone outright. This would be like, no, you never own it. And because you never own it, I think Apple would price it competitively, like they would put it lower. Um, so it would be maybe 30 or $40 a month, and they include Apple One. They include all these extra services, and they're like, yeah, you're technically never going to own the hardware, but you'll feel like you're getting a good deal because you're like, well, I don't want to pay for all that stuff separately. I get all this included for fun. So I think it's very, very smart business wise. I would never do it personally. I think it's stupid. But uh, as far as just like securing your future and having consistent revenue throughout the year instead of having like big iPhone season spike and then it dies off, they're trying to just spread out that income throughout the year. And I don't think Fitness Plus is doing very well for them. So they're
Probably not. Along with Fitness Plus, Apple Arcade, and none of that stuff probably doing all that well.
No, I don't think it is.
So I tend to agree with you that I think it's more an Apple trying to establish consistent revenue year over year with the iPhone. But there are also some thoughts out there that Apple is trying to do this as a way to lock down the iPhone. And what I mean by that is some people feel like Apple is trying to do this subscription thing to have more ownership because obviously when you buy an iPhone outright,
Yeah.
the customer, Apple doesn't own the device no more, so the customer can do whatever they want. But
Right.
with all the right to repair brouhaha lately, and
Oh yeah.
Apple limiting what customers theoretically can do with their iPhones, some people out there think that Apple is doing it just to limit what customers can do as far as right to repair and not having ownership of the device. And I just think that's completely out of left field. But you have any thoughts about that?
It's not a bad theory. I haven't actually seen that thrown around, but it makes sense, especially if like you said, people like saying, it's my device, let me work on it. It's like if
Right,
you're renting it, then you can't even use that argument. No, it's
right.
not your device anymore. I haven't thought about it from that regard. I don't think that's the driving force. I'm not huge into right to repair, but I tend to think that section of the tech community thinks they're more uh
Yeah.
They think they're a larger portion of
And they
the
are. Yep.
tech market than they really are. I think it's incredibly small if you consider we're getting to the point now where like billions of people have smartphones. The number of people that actually want to like tear them apart and work on them or replace them themselves, it's like I think a percent of a percent.
Yeah.
It's like a
Yep.
really small portion. So I don't think Apple's like, how do we shut these people up? And they're sitting around all day. How do we design this Mac Studio so you can't upgrade it yourself? I don't think that's their driving motivation as much as right to repair guys seem to think they designed it this way on purpose just to spite me. It's like, I mean, it was probably just cheaper to produce at scale. That's usually what it ends up being. Is like, well, we could design this differently, but that would cost more, and we just need something we can pump out at high volume. I think that's more likely what it is they feel like people will be more comfortable upgrading to the new iPhone every year if it's just part of a monthly service instead of, because already we're talking about the differences between not the Max or the Pros for a second, but let's just talk about iPhone 13, the 6.1-inch version, compared to iPhone 14, 6.1-inch version.
Mm-hmm.
Why should you get that? I guess it has the same chip this year too. It's a new color. I guess they're both.
I mean, if you want the whole Punch Plus,
yeah, right.
Oh God,
they know that this problem isn't going to go away. It's actually going to get worse, in my opinion. I think the iPhones are going to get, closer and closer each year, and you're not going to be able to notice that many differences. So they're probably smart to be like, let's take away that question of should I spend $1,000? It's like, no, just spend the $30 a month and you'll have the latest. I think that's the driving factor. But they'll probably not shy away from the whole, you agree in this program to not open the device yourself or use third-party components. That won't stop them. That's for sure.
Absolutely. I agree. People are still going to do what people are going to do. But yeah.
So well said, though. That's a good point.
Yeah, that brings us to another important point. Because Apple is doing this, like we both agreed, so they can make more money because iPhone revenue have been on the decline for a few years now. So where does Apple go next, Drew? I mean, we've been talking about the Apple Car project is pretty much on the back burner.
Yeah,
we've been talking about a possible mixed reality set. We've been talking about AR glasses, maybe the evolution of the Apple Watch Lite. But I guess my question to you: what is the next big thing for Apple? Where do they go next, in your opinion?
That's a good question, man. It could go so many ways. I'm worried Tim is probably playing it the safe route with services. Is like, let's make our own version of Netflix and call it a day. Like, hope we got a few more Ted Lassos in there, and the service picks up some traction, which it seems to be, which is good. But I personally think the big missed opportunity was the car. Frankly, I think that market has shown growth and that's shown a lot of innovation in recent history. And I think Apple is being too picky about how they enter that market. I think they want to do something different, and they don't want to. That Apple really cares about profit margins and having a thick, healthy amount of profit on every device sold. That's why the SE3 is $30 more, despite it using almost identical hardware. They care about the profit margins. And the problem is the car market inherently just does not have very good margins. And especially when you outsource manufacturing, everybody gets a cut of that change of like, oh, well, I build the car, I need to make this much. Well, I sell the car, I need to make this much. So the Apple car, basically the concept of them developing and designing an EV from scratch of like, we design the battery, we design the exterior, interior, not partnering with anyone. They're probably too afraid of that because it's a risky business of it requires a whole lot of upfront investment. And there's a lot of car companies that go bankrupt and don't make it. And there's still a lot of legacy automakers that don't make a ton of money, despite being bailed out so many times. So I think they were hesitant of the numbers, but that would have been the biggest thing. Now I just feel like they're too late. I think they've waited too long. And they feel like, well, if we've waited this long, why don't we just wait until we can figure out self-driving and we'll make a car that is completely autonomous? And I'm like, I don't think that's very close either. By the time you figure that out, it's probably still going to be way too late. So I think that's probably the biggest missed opportunity Apple uh, stepped by on and just said, we don't need to be a part of that. Because especially seeing how the market invests and values EV startups and Tesla, and whenever a legacy automaker announces they're transitioning to electric, how the market responds to all that, they they could have had a very special iPad or iPhone like moment on stage where they announce, here's how our car works, and we're going to simplify, and we're going to completely redesign. You needed a Steve Jobs for that almost. We're bringing a internet communicator, a car, and a music player. Are you getting it? These are not three separate things. You needed some kind of big moment for that, and I think they were just a bit too hesitant for it because they weren't sure how profitable of a sector it would be. But yeah, I think they're probably betting on hopefully augmented reality picking up traction. I feel like we've been talking about it for years of
Yeah.
like, all this LiDAR and AR kit stuff would be so much more useful and helpful if we actually had glasses and we could view it in our real world. But every year it's like, oh, maybe next year, maybe next year. It's like the hardware is just not ready yet. And I want it to come as soon as possible. I think the tech community really needs some kind of big new Apple sector that, like the AirTags were, you know, kind of there, and they were well done, but we'd all seen it before. And I think there's been a lot of just refinement on top of refinement for most of Apple's categories of just like, oh, okay, we make these a little bit better, we make this a little bit better. So I hope the glasses are coming. I feel like the boy who cried wolf about them. I've been waiting so many years and still not here. So I'm like, I'll be excited when they're here, but in the meantime, I guess services is the safe way to go for them. They just got to figure out more ways of. We should call it Apple Bills.
Literally, that would be a more accurate name. Now, you said the tech community needs a new Apple segment. I think Apple needs it more than the tech community, though.
Yeah, really. No, they definitely do. I think I mean they're definitely raking in a ton of money right now, even with boring iPhones. They we're talking about the SE3. Oh, they're only going to sell 15 million of them. It's like, oh wow. Poor
Yeah.
Tim. But I think that they could have been so ripe for disruption with an Apple car, like 5-6 years ago. They could have entered the market with something very different that would have been way more expensive than the competition, but would have had this like ecosystem of support with a charging network, and things were thought out end to end. And they probably could have gotten the infotainment software even better than Tesla does, potentially, with app stores and their software, and their custom silicon as well. That could have absolutely translated to car
Ooh.
development.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm bummed that they still haven't entered that space, and I know that they're probably not going to anytime soon. And by the time all the leakers or analysts say that they're going to enter it, I'm like, it's too late by then. There's already going to be so many major players or people that have already designed what the Apple car would have been. I feel like, Elon kind of stole the Apple car moment away from him.
Yeah, it's so funny because every other week now, or seems like at least once a month, we hear about a new high-profile engineer that Apple is losing to some other car manufacturer company.
Right.
Yikes, man.
Constantly.
Like, I don't know. It's just it's a weird situation because I kind of feel like Apple is at a crossroads because it seems like we are right at the doorstep of some type of new frontier technology,
Yeah.
but we just don't know which direction it's going. Now, the big buzz like lately is all about Web3 and the metaverse or anything and all
Oh,
that
yeah.
stuff that comes with that. Have you
Mhm.
had a chance to dabble in the metaverse? Have you had a chance to mess with any of the VR headsets out there or anything like that?
Not recently. I tried the Quest a couple of years ago, the original one, but no, I guess I haven't dabbled in it much. Have you? Have you got?
Yeah, I have a I actually have a Quest 2 sitting right now here next to me, and it's pretty cool. I mean, there's
Yeah.
definitely some possibilities there. But we have been waiting. Now, speaking of something that we've been waiting on forever, we've been waiting on VR for hell longer than I've been alive, and it still
Yeah.
hasn't really gone mainstream yet. So I don't know, but I think it does seem like there seems to be more of a push to get into the metaverse, whatever that means to you all out there
Right.
now these days. So whatever that looks like, I think that seems to be where technology is heading next.
Uh-huh.
I just don't know what that looks like right now.
I'm not sure either. I'm not I mean, I get there's VR gaming experiences. I understand that, and I went to Puerto Rico earlier in the year, and, the people we were staying with there, he worked remotely. He worked all online, but he was interacting with his coworkers and his boss all through this, like, virtual he had the Quest 2, and he
Mm.
used, the apps where you're, like, in a boardroom table and,
Yep. Yep.
seeing virtual versions of everyone. It's kinda technically impressive. I'm not exactly sure what the advantages of doing that versus just a normal video call, but, I guess I don't I don't work in a traditional office job, so maybe I don't quite grasp it, but
Yeah, I think with especially with the way the pandemic had come and gone and people being locked up for 2 years, I think we just want an easier way to have that, like, stimulation of being in person when even when we can't be.
Right, sure.
So I think that's why there's been this extra push for the metaverse and developing it into different things like that, just to make it easier to be in person when we can't be. But that's
Yeah.
actually a good segue. Speaking of in person, Drew,
Yeah.
rumors are that this summer WWDC is returning to in person potentially. What are your thoughts about these big events returning to in person?
I heard it I'm not sure who said it. I didn't see who the source on that was, but, I it's the first it's kinda surprising to me. I would have thought Apple would have preferred the whole virtual, uh format just because they have so much control out of how things get announced and unveiled. Um, I guess the main reason Quadruple UDC being online, being in person makes more sense is because there's like a lot of developer workshops and stuff where they invite uh, thousands of people from around the world to work directly with Apple software engineers. So that I guess I can grasp being more in person, but yeah, I would have thought after all these virtual events and how well they're kind of more interesting to watch for me at least than the
Hmm.
in-person events.
Yeah,
It's just a guy walking back and forth on stage with some slides versus all these cool drone shots and all this insane
transitions. Yep.
there's stunts and cinematography. Center stage is bored with me. It wants to look away.
Center stage is like all over the place over there.
Yeah. I'm returning it. I don't like but yeah, it's I guess if the pandemic is less of a concern in the future, Apple might. I guess if you had to have at least one event in person, that would be the one to do it. I suppose because I've never been invited, and I'm not a developer, so I don't show up to those kinds of things. But maybe the people who did are kind of missing that, and they feel like the online workshops just aren't quite the same thing. So I'm excited to hear. I was hoping for invites today. Honestly, I was kind of surprised we didn't get any. Um, Usually it's near the end of March when they announce it typically. So
Yeah.
I'm thinking,
Well, we got tomorrow and the next day.
yeah, I'm thinking any day now we might get invites and then we'll know for sure. But I'm not going, so I'm sure I'm just gonna keep watching virtually anyway.
Have you been to the movies lately at all, or are you still staying away from the movies?
No, I saw the new Batman.
Okay. So
How about you?
you yourself, oh yeah, I thought too. So you yourself, you are returning to doing in person things like movies and different events and things. Okay.
Yeah, bit by bit. I don't live in a very populated area in the first place, so there was like 5 people in the theater when I went. Um, so I'm not like actively trying to throw myself into really populated scenarios, and we still bring our masks in the car and we wear masks in the grocery store and stuff. But yeah, my friend was wanting to go see the movie, and I was like, yeah, okay, let's go. Since it was showing and it wasn't too busy, so um, seems that the restrictions are pretty chill where I am, at least.
Yeah, I think the world's starting to open back up a little bit more. So I think you're going to see more
Yeah,
in person events as the year goes on,
right.
especially with summertime coming up. I think everybody could be way like out there and doing whatever they can this summer since their mask mandates are down and places are opening back up to allow people to come in and congregate and things like that. So it's going to be a wild
Exactly.
summer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we've been trying to plan a trip to Australia for years. Like
Ooh.
we originally were going to go in December of 2020, and then that of course couldn't happen, and Australia didn't start opening up their borders to visitors until like a month or so ago. So now they're starting to allow that kind of thing. So we're trying to figure out what time in the year we're going to go.
See, you and Louise are brave. I would be afraid to go off the continent, given what happened in 2020. People that were like out of the US, some of them got stuck.
Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
be afraid to get stuck. And so I know we're getting past it right now, but I would still be afraid to go out of the continent and get stuck
Sure.
somewhere else. That'd be crazy.
Well, luckily we're not we wouldn't be staying in like a hotel or something. She has like family there that we'd be with. So as long as I got decent internet connection, that, that's the reason I went with the MacBook Pros, because I did kind of want to work in different places and travel and
Yep.
stay in different areas. And I passed through Chicago not too long ago,
I know.
but
That I missed you, man.
I should have I should have let you know further in advance. I didn't really know I was going to be there until about 4 days before, so it
Oh,
was
good.
fairly last minute. But yeah, I want to be able to work wherever there's internet,
Yeah.
essentially. So if we got stuck there, okay, I guess I'm living in Australia for a little while. Wouldn't be the worst thing.
Speaking of that, can I ask you a non-tech question?
Anything. Those are
So
better usually.
you are a very successful entrepreneur because obviously you have multiple YouTube channels that you run and you make a full-time living off of it. How do you explain to your friends and family what you do for a living? And do you ever run into people that are dismissive or they are not really a fan of how you make your living?
Ooh. I guess I've never met someone that's like not a fan or like against it or anything, but there's I would actually say most people ask surprisingly little questions about it. Um, I think it mostly just confuses people, so they're like, "Okay, don't talk about that." You know? Don't, because I love talking about it. I love saying like, "No, that this is a job," because I love it. I think it's a ton of fun, and I think more people should be aware of like it's a possibility. It's not a guarantee that you can make a full time wage out of it. And if I lived in a city, I probably couldn't live off of it, but I live in the middle of nowhere, so it kind of works for me. Um, but yeah, normally I describe it as just I make YouTube videos professionally, mostly about tech stuff like phones, watches, and laptops, and I kind of try to summarize it by saying it's mostly buyer's guides. I think that's what a lot of my content comes back to when we're talking about leaks or rumors. It's basically trying to preface people: should you wait or should you buy now, or what's a good deal? Most of my questions in live streams are, should I buy this? Is this worth waiting for? Or should I just compromise with this type of thing? So I feel like most of my content stems down to just kind of recommending what I think people should buy and what will probably fit their needs best. And yeah, most of the time, like I've been meeting a lot of new people because I'm like playing as if you're talking non-tech, I'm uh, practicing for this like local play that one of our friends invited me to be in. Um,
Ooh.
it's all silent. It's kind of like a ballet type thing, although I'm not a dancer. I'm just an extra. But I've met a lot of people that are also extras, and they're like, even the director was like, "What's your profession? What do you do for a living?" And I was like, how do I explain? It's like I do YouTube videos professionally, and he was like, "Oh, okay, good for you." I think I think it's one of those things where a lot of people probably assume I'm, living in my parents' basement, and oh, he has a YouTube channel. We don't talk about him. you know, I wish I could preface that like, no, that's my job. It's real. It's a thing.
It's real, yep.
Um, and then usually the next question is always like, how many subscribers do you have? And I'm like, well, I have this many, but I never get that many views. Like no one, not every subscriber is watching. So, um, in fact, most subscribers don't watch my videos actually. But yeah, I just try to explain it as uh, YouTube. I don't know of a better way of summarizing it, but I'm kind of disappointed by the lack of follow-ups I typically get. Most people are like, "Okay." And then, they'll ask someone next to it, "What do you do?" "Oh, I'm a detective," or I work at the gym." "Really? What's that like?" People ask more about the everyday jobs, or
Yep.
when they come to me, they're like, "Oh, okay, don't ask." It's too
Too
much.
funny. I appreciate y'all in the chat, hanging out. Thank you. And then Nikki is I haven't seen Nikki in for a minute, man. How you doing, Nikki?
Hey,
What's up, dude?
good to
Appreciate
hear
y'all
from
being
him.
here. Yeah, good to hear from all of y'all. The Oscar down there too. What's up, Oscar? Good to see
It
you.
Nikias say you've inspired all of us. Nikias is an inspiration to me. The amount of cinematography and work he
Seriously.
puts into his unboxings and oh my god, travel as well.
Yeah, he's about that life. He does a real good job with his content for sure.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So
Well done.
it's interesting to hear you talk about the content creation and how you describe YouTube because I think even today, a lot of people have this negative connotation when we say that we are YouTubers or we make a full time living off of YouTube. They'll
Mhm.
say stupid stuff like, "Well, that's not a real job," or "How you
Yeah,
make money doing that?" And then we're just like, "Dude, do you understand that the world has changed in the past 15 years with the way we do things, the way we can make money?
absolutely.
Like people are so narrow minded when you tell them about how the world works today, especially if they are used to the way it worked in the past and they don't really
Yeah,
understand how the world has evolved over the past 15 years.
right.
And then they look down on content creators. It's a whole thing. But I think the more and more that we do it and we make it more of a thing, I think more people are starting to understand more than before. But there's still a large portion of people out there that just turn their nose up at it for whatever reason. And I'm just like, all right, you do that.
Yeah, because there's not like a structured path to success for it. It's
Yeah.
so dynamic and it changes depending on what section of YouTube you're in or what section of the world you're in,
Yep.
and the different approaches. There's just such a range of channels, which I find interesting. Like
Yeah.
it's already is very difficult for YouTube. You know, they bunch the genre of science and technology into one thing. There's so many subgenres just to that category. Like just to Apple content. You know, there's channels that
Yep.
dive into the repair and teardowns and
Mhm.
thermals, and channels like mine that just talk about news or what's rumored or what could happen. And most of the time, if I do talk to people about YouTube videos, they think, "Oh, so you like try out products and review them?" And I'm like, "That's probably like 5% of the content is me reviewing it. Most of the content is just pure like Apple might do this, but they might not." And I think that's stupid. You know, I wish Apple would switch to Type C. I wish Apple would let me wirelessly charge this
Oh
mouse. And, you
man.
know,
Oh boy. The
it's
mouth.
a lot of complaining, and it's difficult for people to grasp their mind. Like, people watch you do that. Like, not everybody. It's not like millions, but I found a little niche that's somewhat interested. And just in the Apple community, there's such range of approaches. And like Snazzy Labs also does fascinating videos where he's like, I'm just going to completely repackage the Mac Mini, and
Yep.
I'm going to describe how I 3D print this new chassis for it. And he does really in-depth videos like
Oh yeah.
that, and they're fairly different from John Morrison's approach or MKBHD's approach. And it's like, even in just the tech community, you have this wide range of approaches to channels. And there's honestly a lot of the channels I watch today are sub 100K, just because they found a little niche that I find myself in. And um, I don't think a ton of people are in the same niche, but I'll find channels that are like, I'm just going to rant about such and such, or I'm going to talk about either EVs, or I'm going to talk about tech, or different genres of YouTube where you find like-minded people, which I think is probably my favorite part about the job, is meeting people that are interested in the same stuff you are, because I didn't really have a community like this in my personal life that was interested in the same stuff as me. So just that I can share opinions and share thoughts, and other people out there are also sharing their opinions and thoughts, I'm like, dang, that's that's kind of cool part of the internet. And if enough people are watching you, then yeah, you can commit your time more fully to it. So I love that, and that's why I want more people to know about it. I don't want to brag. I'm not trying to like show off to strangers or say I'm famous. I don't do that, but I just try to make it sound like a normal thing. Like, you don't have to be super rare, or even
I
me,
uh
super talented. You don't have to
I
be
just
very
put out a
talented.
tweet I just put out a tweet recently on the vidIQ Twitter account, just
Mm,
letting creators know that what we do, there are so I mean, I know in the realm of YouTube, we feel like there's a lot of creators, but in the total world, There are so very few creators that do what we do and make a full-time living doing what we do.
Yeah.
That we need to appreciate each other because
Yeah.
we are the only ones who are going through it and understand what it takes to do what we do. So we
Right.
should definitely make it our business to have good relationship with each other so we can take care of each other because we are kind of in the like a unique elite club. Okay, anybody that's making a full-time living, either being a content creator or if you're like me, you're not you're in the creator space, but you're not really a full-time creator per se. We understand what goes on here. We have to take care of each other because it's a unique thing, and we should appreciate the relationships that we have with our fellow creators. I
No,
mean,
I agree.
me and you, for example. I mean, we like I was not expecting to have this chat today, but it just happened because me and you have that relationship that I'm like, Drew, we have a conversation. Drew's like, let's do it.
And yeah, we go way back too. We've
go
been
way
doing this
back.
for
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I remember the attic, man. I remember the attic.
He was there for the attic.
I was there for
I feel
the
like
attic.
everyone was there for the attic now.
Of
But
course.
yeah, it's tough because there's a ton of saturation as well, you know,
Yeah.
like not not everybody can do it necessarily because there's so many channels now all posting different stuff in their own way, but also in the same genre. So getting your voice heard and that type of thing, I've struggled with myself and trying to figure out how to have a unique perspective or why should people watch you instead of others. I don't always have a good answer. um, so I think what probably might deserve some more attention. I don't know exactly how I can do it, but what might need to be prioritized more for a lot of startup channels or channels trying to go full time is not just how do you make more, how do you get the right deals, how do you increase CPMs, how do you grow all this or grow watch time or whatever, but also how do you lower your overhead? I don't think gets enough attention because this is a mistake from my own experience of just figuring out like uh, how much does it cost you to make these videos? How much are you spending on either the equipment or your set or your office? How much money goes towards those kinds of things? That is going to people don't really look at that as pushing away the ability to go full time as much because they're realizing, well, if I want to make a living at YouTube, then that means my channel has to make a certain amount. It's like, well, if you can figure out a way of living more frugal and figuring out how lower expenses and do things affordably, then that dream of it becoming full time is a lot more achievable. So that might mean compromising on a certain lens or a certain piece of equipment and maybe compromising with the M1 Max instead of the M1 Ultra. Maybe maybe your processor doesn't need to be the fastest. Maybe you can get by with an M1 and a Mac Mini. Just because a YouTuber is really happy about how fast he can export on his M1 Ultra or his $50,000 Mac Pro, that doesn't mean that's the only way to do it.
I am so glad you brought this up because normally when I'm talking about this with other creators, I'm talking about it from the aspect of you don't need that much to start your channel. Obviously, there's all the top level gear, but you don't need an M1 Mac computer to start your channel, or you don't need a Shure SM7B to start your channel. But you just came from that perspective of how much money can you save, or how, like you said, how can you lower the cost of your overhead and make a full-time salary? And the same is true. You don't need the top tier equipment to make full-time money on YouTube.
Right.
It's crazy that you I never really thought about it from that perspective, but you're absolutely right.
Yeah, and particularly that's the beauty of the internet is you can be anywhere, right? Like that's I think a big differentiating factor of like someone trying to make a living full time in a high cost of living area. If you were like in the Bay Area or you're in New York City or something, oh my God, you have to be millions of subscribers to get a full time pay. You probably don't, but a lot more than me, essentially, I'm sure. So if you're really passionate about it and you're comfortable with it, maybe look towards living situations not too far away from friends and family, but still like in a lower cost area. And as long as you've got decent internet there, which is one of the reasons I love reviewing different internet providers, because it's one of those things that we kind of all need, but they don't all have to be expensive. And you know, internet in the United States is notoriously bad, so letting people know what you're capable of with the cheaper options. Like, this is the cheapest internet provider I've ever had, and it happens to be the best. So I'm really happy about that. And just being in a place where I'm like, okay, if I can, you know, prioritize getting rid of rent by buying a house and paying it off, then I have a lot less overhead to worry about. Therefore, I don't have to go find other sources of income or revenue. Um, and I owe a lot of that to my wife. I did not think that way before I met Louise. So she kind of introduced me to the concept of, hey, let's look at where your money's going, and if there's ways of saving and putting more aside and investing that money as well so you can turn it into other passive income streams. So I owe pretty much all of that to her. So I'm very grateful.
Louise is awesome. Tell her I say hello.
I will. I will.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
I don't want to keep you here too long, but we do have a couple of questions. I'll let the people throw
Oh,
your
sure.
way. First question.
I've got time. I'm
Okay. Okay. Cool.
I'm out of ideas for Taylor's of EV today. So,
All right. So John wants to know what your favorite food is.
ooh, I've been struggling with this lately because I've been trying to lose some weight, and I've been watching what I eat a lot more. But I think still to this day, just a really big burger and fries is still my go-to
Well,
like
this is why I
favorite.
rock with you because you're my type of people, man. I love that. I love that, man. I love that.
I mean, I don't know. You probably have way better food in where you are, but I just went to where was it? Chili's a couple days ago.
Okay.
They have not a sponsor, but
We know Drew doesn't do sponsors. That's my
I don't do sponsors, but I was shocked by the value of the they have this like 3 for 10.99 deal where you get a drink, an appetizer, and an entree.
Mhm.
So you get any drink of your choice, unlimited refills. Plus, there's like this thing called the Just Bacon Burger, and that comes with fries, and you get a salad before it shows up. It's $11, and it's tons of food. It's really delicious to me, at least, and it's cheaper than a lot of. It's close to the price of fast food, but it doesn't taste like fast food to me. So I've been eyeing that for quite a few months now. So whenever we go to Chili's, that's what I get. But
Gotcha.
I haven't been doing that much because I'm losing weight.
Okay. All right. So the kid wants to know: do you ever feel lonely? This is the big one for a lot of us creators.
Ooh. Well, it probably helps that I'm married.
Yeah, Drew has a cheat code.
Yeah. So I don't feel that lonely, but I get what he's saying. When I first moved out of my parents' place, I lived by myself for many months, and yeah, I definitely felt alone at certain points, and it's especially difficult when you're trying to like build your brand or build a business, and you're struggling to find people that view it the same way you do or want it to be the same thing you do. And as time goes on, people find other opportunities, and that's great, and people grow in different ways, which is fine. But when you find out that there's not other people in your life that want the same things you do or have the same dreams as you do, that even though you're not physically alone, you have
Yeah.
friends and people in your life, just not having like shared goals or dreams or ideologies, I can feel lonely about that sometimes, where you just don't really have
Yep.
necessarily that support network that you may have thought you would. So I get it, but my once again, I gotta owe a lot to Louise because she helps me feel not alone, and she's always willing to listen to me rant, even though she's not interested in tech, and uh, she doesn't watch tech content or anything. But I'm like, "Ah, can I just tell you about the studio
Wait,
display
wait,
for a
wait,
minute?"
wait, 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 wait. What? She doesn't watch your content? Really?
No,
Oh, Louise, we gotta talk. We gotta talk.
she lives it. She doesn't have to. She,
I guess she's cute.
I mean, she hears me when I'm streaming or complaining, and she, I'll, I'll, I'll have some issue that I have to bring up. I'm like, can I just tell you about the new monitor they came out with? Can I tell you about this new phone? Or, she hears it just like everybody online hears it, but she probably hears a less censored version of it.
I love it. I love it. All right, here's an interesting question. I'm pretty sure I've heard you talk about this before, but we can do it again.
Mhm.
Why do you not do sponsorships on your channel?
Well, I'm not against them. I hope people know, like, I'm not gonna boycott you, or I'm not gonna hate your channel if you do them. I'm all in favor of people doing whatever they got to do. Whatever. I'm just in favor of make the content that you want to see. That's what drives my content motivation, is just like I want to talk about something that I find interesting, and I'm not really trying to be I'm not trying to cater specifically to the algorithm or based on what a brand wants. So I get offers all the time, and they're usually not very good. But there's companies always like, "Can we pay you to talk about us, or can you talk about us in a video?" And most of the time, it's brands and uh, services and stuff that I'm not interested in personally. But I also just think that your recommendation or your opinion of a particular brand or product is probably going to be a little bit swayed if you're getting paid to talk about them. So it's important that people disclose that, and I'm fine with it if they do. But I'm very grateful to be in a position where so far I haven't needed to. So, like, if worst came to worst, if I needed to do a sponsorship to pay the bills, I'm not against it. But just based on how people have supported the channel, both on live streams and just watching the content, um, I'm I'm able to make enough to where I don't need the extra money. So I'm not trying to be motivated by, if I do XYZ, I'll make this much more, because it's like, yeah, but I don't I don't necessarily want to sacrifice more of my content to be talking about other ads, because ads annoy me. Um, I watch a ton of YouTube. I watch more YouTube than any other
Yep.
service, and I pay for premium specifically to get rid of the ads. And then there's more sponsorships in the videos, and I'm like, I'm trying to get rid of all this. So I get why they do it. It's fine. I understand, especially when there's overhead that's been increased over time, and people need to pay their bills, so they got to do those deals. But to me, I kind of feel like people should be aware of this. I'm not saying you can't do sponsorships, because I've had very, very many close friends that do it too. But just be aware that you're giving a bit more control to another entity when you do that. Because if you balloon your expenses and you balloon your overhead of what it takes to create your content, and um, how much it costs to operate your channel, then you might get to a point where you have to do brand deals. Otherwise, you can't pay the bills. And if you get to that point, it puts the brand at a very, very high position of power, because now they can say, well, instead of putting the ad in the last 30 seconds, we want you to put it in the first 5 seconds, and now we want you to do it the first 30 seconds. And if you've ballooned up your expenses to the point where you need that brand deal, you can't afford to say no. And I've seen that happen to certain channels, which um I'm sure they've paid the bills, which is good, but you've you've given them a ton of leverage, basically.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying be aware of that and try to keep that into account, that if you start to need them, if you start needing brands, they might be able to call the shots, and then they have a lot of control over your content. Um, and I'm a control freak. I'm kind of weird like that. Whole reason I dropped out of college and wanted to become a full-time YouTuber was just because I didn't want to have to work on other people's projects. It's like I don't have control over what I do or how I spend my time. I wanted to be self-employed and just have complete control over the content I'm making, and when I get to make it and how I get to make it. I didn't want other people telling me you got to do this or you got to do this. And that's what you kind of have to be comfortable with when you do sponsorships and stuff. So other people do it and make far more than I do. So it does cost me something to say, no, I want to have control. It's like, yeah, you could be making a lot more, Drew. And I'm like, I know, but that's what I pay for being a control freak, I guess. As I
I think a part of it for you is your, I don't know if this is the right term, but mental health. Yeah, like your mental health is, you feel
True.
better knowing that you have full control over what you do. There's something for that. There's something to be said about that.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's I haven't really thought of it that way, but now that you say it, yeah, mental health does put should be a priority. I had a friend recently tell me that. It was my wife's friend or something, but she said, whatever you choose in life, always prioritize mental health, which I think is a great thing. And I think that if there's definitely ways, I'm sure you can mentally be healthy and still do sponsorships. It's not like
Yeah. Oh
this
yeah.
it's one or the other. But I especially with, as you know, I produce a crap ton of content,
Yes, you do.
probably more than I should, or more than most do. And from what I've discovered from the people I know that do sponsorships and brand deals, they typically require you to like make the video, send it to them for approval,
Yeah.
and they have to review it and say make these changes. And with the amount of content I produce, it would not fit very well with my timeline, because I'm the kind that's like, as soon as this video is uploaded, it's going live. I got to hit publish instantly, and I'm gonna start work on the next video in a couple minutes. So I gotta be quick, and I don't want to have to abide by someone else's timeline or schedule when I'm producing content like this. And again, I'm not fundamentally against it. If I needed to, I would rather do a sponsored video than have to go work or go back to college or something. You know.
That's the
Um,
main reason why I don't really reach out to do collabs too much, because I don't really have the time to work on somebody else's schedule, man. I'm trying to get videos out usually the same
sure.
day I shoot and edit. I'm not really trying to wait for somebody to send me a clip. I just want to make
Yeah.
my content, edit it, upload it, and go on by my business. So
Right.
yeah.
I totally get that. It makes a ton of sense, especially when you're in the tech field and the news moves so quick.
Yep.
And there's often a lot of videos I make that will be dated within hours.
Huh.
That happens. Where you're
Definitely.
like, you post it, it gets some attention, you drove some discussion in the comments, and then the very next day, oh, that whole video is useless. Kind of like my last minute predictions before keynotes, or
Oh yeah.
um I remember it was kind of a last minute leak, but when the iPad mini had the replace moved volume buttons on the mini 6, that leak came out like the day before the event. And I wasn't sure if I should talk about it, because I was like, yeah, that might be dated very quickly, but whatever. I've got the time. So I cranked that one out, and the video did okay. It did pretty well. And then the very next day it was true. So if I would have just skipped that one video, I would have missed out on that potential discussion as well as that revenue for the channel. So um that's the kind of thing where it's like, yeah, you don't want to spend that much time or wait around on schedules for a lot of this content, because it's could very well be dated within hours.
True story. Khalil wants to know if you're still using your Apple Card. Of
Oh yeah,
course.
that's still my only credit card. I don't have any other ones,
Oh man.
and I still love it. I wonder how profitable it is for Apple, because they make it so clear and easy to avoid getting interest charges, that I wonder if like no one's carrying any balances, like no one's paying any interest charges,
Oh
because
no,
the
that's not true. I carry a balance every month, so I'm
oh
paying.
okay.
I'm paying interest. I don't know about everybody out here.
Tim's very happy with you then.
Oh yeah, it must be. I mean, it's not much. I try to keep it as low as I can, but yeah, still pay me.
Sure. But yeah,
Hey,
I love the cashback, and that's another perk of I switched to the T-Mobile home internet. That's 3% cash back.
mm,
So it's under $50 a month now, technically. And even some of the gas stations I've been going to are supporting Apple Pay now. So
yes, I love that. Beautiful
it's
thing.
it's perfect. I've not found another credit card I would rather use.
I've heard arguments that there are much better cards out there, but probably the best one that I have on my person. So
Yeah. Well, I'm sure there's some with better cash back or better
yeah,
rewards if you pay a certain amount or that kind of thing, but I've never been too into the whole like, well, you gotta pay more to get more back. It's like, I know all the cash back on the Apple Card is pure profit for me, because um, I'm buying things I would have bought regardless, and I
right.
don't I don't pay interest charges on it. I always pay it off. So that's how I'm confident it's not costing me anything. It's my favorite Apple service because it makes me money.
I know that's right. So I don't know about seeing this recently on your channel, but you used to buy Android phones to test them out. Do you still do that, or are you just like you're done with that?
I took a break basically because in 2020 I felt like I reviewed kind of like every type of Android phone. I reviewed the budget Pixel, I reviewed the Z Fold, I reviewed the Flip, and then the S20 Ultra, and even the OnePlus 8. So I was like, I'm covering the high-end flagships, the mid-range, the low range, and the foldables, and pretty much all the reviews got the same response, which was, who cares what you think, you're an Apple sheep, like
Yep.
like we don't, I don't know. I wasn't getting a very positive response from most of them, even though some of them I recommended. There were a couple Android phones where I was like, I would legit tell people to buy this in my personal life. I think it was the 4A, the Pixel 4A when it came out. I was like,
Yep.
that is a really good deal. I
Yep.
would legit. I think I did tell like my aunt who's not an iOS fan. She uses an Android already, but I was like, if you're in the market for a new one, I would recommend that one. Um, and then there's phones like the Ultra and the Fold where I didn't necessarily say this sucks, buy an iPhone, which is what most of the haters assume I say all the time. But what I said was, the Ultra is pretty good, but I don't think it's worth it over the S20 Plus. So just get the slightly cheaper, smaller option. I think that's worth it. Or um, the Z Fold, it was like, yeah, I would rather buy an Ultra for this money and buy a tablet and still be in the same budget, like a Tab S8 or something like that. And all the reactions were pretty much just like, you're the Apple guy. Who cares what you think? And I just figured that if I do jump back into Android reviews again, I think I should do something a bit more different than what I used to do, which was just buy the phone, use it for a couple weeks, and then return it or sell it. And I think people have seen me do that, even though there's been new folds and new flagships and stuff. I'm sure I would get probably similar responses of like, well, it's not an iPhone, but this one's pretty good, or if you're on a budget, this is a lot better hardware than the iPhone SE has going for it. Um, I would probably come to the same conclusions that I would if I just made a video about it, regardless. It's just Samsung announced this phone today. I'm going to talk about it in a video. I don't need to unbox it and review it to come to that conclusion. But I've dabbled in the idea of in the future, perhaps like doing a long-term commitment, a long-term review of Android where I hold on to it for months or potentially years just to see what happens to an Apple sheep brain if he's just completely thrown out of his element. I think that might be not necessarily fun for me, but interesting for the viewer.
Yeah.
And right now, I'm just too comfortable in the ecosystem, and I'm happy with how my Apple hardware is working. So I I don't know when I'll do that, but I think when things start getting more and more boring with Apple, and we're still waiting on the glasses, and all of the Macs have transitioned to Apple Silicon, and there's no more Intel. After all the dust has settled with that, and we're just kind of waiting for Apple to do something, maybe that would be a good time for me to mix things up a bit and just throw myself into a Google ecosystem or a Samsung ecosystem and talk about my experience with it. But I'm not sure because I'm sure I've developed a lot of Apple loyal fans to my channel now that are
Yeah.
suddenly going to be far less interested in my videos if I stop talking about Apple. So I don't know if that's a great idea, but I know that if I do review an Android again, I want to keep it long term, not like a temporary
Right.
thing.
Gotcha.
And I also want to wait for something special, like something that might be different from the rest of the market, whether it's uh highly rated Pixel or a Samsung plus watch plus earbuds, just some kind of when it feels like it has a good honest try. Because I don't want to go into it like going into it knowing I'm going to hate it or just wanting to complain the whole time. I just want to see if I genuinely tried to switch to Android for long term, could I get more comfortable with it and could I find uh, use cases where I'm like, this is actually better, and is it possible that I wouldn't want to go back? I want to find out if it's possible. I don't know, but
Here's a question for you.
yeah.
Do you want a foldable iPhone?
That's the tough one. I think. Ooh,
I
I think I
I
want one as a content creator, but I don't think I want one as a customer. Like if I was not making tech videos, I don't think I would want a foldable iPhone. But I actually think it would be a really good idea for Apple as a company to do something to mix up the lineup a little bit because it's been a lot of the same for the past few years.
yeah.
And I think it's at this rate, it seems like it's going to keep being the same. It's like, okay, we've got the pro options, we got the cheaper options, and the pro options get a couple pointless camera features, and the entry models have new colors. And I don't know how much they can keep this formula going, So I think kind of throwing a curveball and making some kind of very high price but luxury iPhone experience, iPhone Ultra, if you will, or um, something that could combine iPad OS and iOS into a single device, I think,
Oh,
would
okay.
be fascinating from a content creator's perspective, and I think would be really fun to review. Whether or not it would be better than having a 13 Pro Max and an iPad Mini or an iPad Pro, I I don't know necessarily if I've tried a form factor that's made me convinced I wouldn't want to use my iPad anymore, because I reviewed the Z Fold 2 and it's interesting, but I wouldn't, and it was fun to try out a form factor like that, but I don't know if I would replace my iPad with that, just because it's so much smaller, and
Yeah.
that would still be the case even if Apple made one.
Yep.
But I do genuinely think Apple would make the best foldable. I think they would get the software right, and
Yeah.
it would not be the cheapest. It would probably
No, it
cost
wouldn't.
way more. But I think. Ooh, here's my question for you:
Ooh.
does it have Lightning or USB-C?
Oh dear God! It better have USB Type C. Yo, we are done with Lightning. Okay, it's time to go bury that stuff. Apple,
Yeah, right.
my God.
I'm just confused. Like, do you think they would brand it as an iPad that can do iPhone things, or do you think they would brand it as an iPhone that can do iPad things?
Oh, they would definitely have to brand it an iPhone that can do iPad things.
Yeah, I think so too.
But here's the
That'd be
tougher
interesting.
question, though. Let's have the conversation that we've been having pretty much for over a year now.
Uh-huh.
Mac OS, iPad OS. Some people want to see Mac OS somehow make its way to iPad, so iPad can be more functional. What are
Yeah,
your? Oh, you raised your hand, so you're
that's me.
among the crowd. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep, I agree with you. Yes.
I think that's the quickest solution to fixing everyone's iPad complaints, because I've been hearing it for years that, oh, just wait for next quadruple UDC. iPad OS will get better. iPad OS will get pro apps. iPad OS will get more Mac features. And we just got to wait. I've heard people say that year after year after year. And I used to agree with them, for the record. I used to not be in favor of like a dual boot, like a boot camp approach where you could just reboot the iPad into straight up Mac OS. I used to disagree with that and say, no, it would be better for iPad OS, or iOS as it used to be called. It'd be better for that to just improve over time and gain more features. That way you could still have a touch dominant OS, but it just gets more Mac stuff. After the past 2 or 3 years of updates, I'm not convinced it's going to happen. Like, after all these years, I'm like, we can't even get the weather app on this thing, and you're telling me they're going to add Final Cut at some point, or you're telling me
Where's the
they're going to,
calculator?
yeah. Yeah. It's like they keep saying, oh, maybe next year they'll improve iPad OS. And the amount of time at this rate of improvement it would take before every advantage to having a Mac would be on the iPad, it's decades. It's going to be forever
Yeah.
before it's like, oh, you want this type of terminal commands or these types of Finder options. You'll that they're not going to remember all of these little, because it's not one big thing, right? It's not like just add
Butter.
multitasking,
There's a
like
lot of stuff. There's a lot of
window management. Just add that and it's done. It's like, no, there's like a million little things that people are like, oh, my Mac can do that. Oh, it's like, for me, it's external cameras like you're using right now, I'm sure. You can plug in your camera directly to your Mac and use it as a webcam like this.
Yep.
And the iPad can do kind of external microphones, but it gives you no settings.
No.
And every time I've tried to do it, the audio is all peaked and messed up. It doesn't work. Whereas I can go into Mac on my Mac, and there's 50 programs that let me customize exactly how the mic sounds and how it works. And there's this huge amount of support and options they build in for the third parties. It's not just for, it's not just that there's not the right iPad app yet. It's like fundamentally the framework doesn't give the third parties the control they need. And if they just 1 year just decided, okay, just like you could boot Windows on your Mac, now you can boot Mac OS on your iPad, that would suddenly fix like every little minor complaint, and people could just have a device where they boot into both. It's like, if you're doing Mac-like things, just boot it into Mac OS, and the touchscreen is either deactivated or It only works with the Apple Pencil, just like Sidecar. And if you like iPadOS the way it is, if you're an average consumer and you're fine with that, then don't worry about it. You don't even have to activate that feature. Like, it could still be iPadOS by default. Out of the box, that's what it runs. I'm just saying something. I don't care if it's a high price. I don't care if it's expensive. It only works on the M1 iPads, or it only works on the 1 terabyte iPads. As long as it was possible, I would be so much more interested in, and I could justify people spending a lot of money on iPads. But right now, I can't with the way iPadOS is set up. It's,
And the way Apple teasing us is just rude. I mean, Sidecar and Universal Control. Come on, Apple, really?
Right.
Oh, come on.
And they give it Swift Playgrounds instead of Xcode. Oh, and they throw in the M1. It's like the same powerful hardware in a Mac now and an iPad, but you still can't do it.
Why? Why, Apple? Why? We can't do anything with that power. Why?
Right. And for the record, I'm not saying don't put an M1 chip in the iPad. I'm just saying bring the iPad up with the hardware.
Yes.
You know, I'm all in favor
of having all that hardware. We can't do anything because it's limited by the software.
Right. I'm not saying don't improve the hardware. I'm just saying improve both, because it's not. I'm not in favor of it stagnating and staying at the same capability it's been at. I'm saying it should continue to grow. But the problem is, for the past 5 years, basically, iPads have basically maxed out in productivity. They're all, even I ran my whole YouTube channel off an iPad Pro way back in 2015. You did. It's
no lie. Yep.
We know the basics can be done. You can do some light video editing. You can do some photo editing. It's fine for the basics, and it's been good at the basics for years, but they just don't want to push it higher than that. They are insistent that it has to be just basics. And if you really want productivity, you got to buy a Mac. And I don't buy into the cannibalization argument either, because iPads, if you spec them out to be equal to Macs, cost more. Like, you have to spend extra money to get the keyboard, to get the 256 gigs of storage. You have to spend, and on the Air and the entry-level iPad, they're tiny screens. They're 11-inch displays. So if you want something similar to the size of a MacBook Air that comes with a keyboard and trackpad, you got to spend $1,500 instead of $1,000. So I'm like, no, this isn't going to kill off Mac sales. If anything, people would spend more money. Like, I would, if there was an iPad Ultra or whatever, I would spend $6,000-$7,000 on it if it could do everything my MacBook Pro and iPad could. If I could combine these products into one, I would totally do it. That sounds awesome. Ooh. But they don't want to. They're not interested in that. So,
speaking of Pro devices, do you still have your iMac Pro, or did you get rid of it?
No, we tried to sell it, but no one offered anything good for it. So we set it up in the other bedroom for my wife to use. So she likes it. She uses it.
I mean, that thing's a beast, so that thing's gonna be good for a while. Yeah,
it's an old beast. It's a little bit faster than an M1 chip, but yeah, it's got some big fat bezels and, you know, big fat chin. So it's it had its day. Oh, I enjoyed it while it lasted.
I still remember you unboxing that bad boy.
Man. Oh yeah, that was a fun day. That was dangerous too, because I basically blew all of my money on that thing. I did not have much left after. Don't do what I did.
Oh man,
just drained my account.
Too funny. I had something I was going to ask you earlier, and I completely lost it. Damn it! I hate when it happens.
Yeah, me too. It's happening to me a lot lately.
Don't get old, man. Don't get old.
I gotta stop doing that.
Yeah, man. Oh my goodness. Wow, what else is going on?
Can't believe I'm still complaining about the iPad all these years later.
You're not the only one, man. I talked to Trent Tech about this every so often. We just marvel at how limited iPadOS is. And it's just so frustrating because, again, Apple constantly updates the hardware. You know, we got the mini LED display, we got the M1 chip now, we got the speaker with the studio grade microphone and all that good. But when you actually want to do work on the iPad, like my higher pro level work, I mean, we don't even have Final Cut Pro on iPad. Why do we not have Final Cut Pro on iPad? Like, I don't understand.
It's been years. They even put Mac OS on the A12Z chip with the dev kit back in 2020. It wasn't even M1 yet. It's like basically the chip they have in the 2018 iPad Pro, they admitted is fully capable of running Mac OS. It's possible.
Yeah.
They don't want it to do it.
So Joseph was probably thinking from the Apple perspective. He said, if you want an M1 equipped Mac OS device, get a Mac. I mean, and a lot of people will. I have one. Drew have one. But yeah,
we've done that.
Some people want their devices to be touch primary, so they want that iPad form factor.
Well, and just for the argument of traveling, like I would love to just have one device that can do both. And in my view, it's like it'd be way easier to turn an iPad into a Mac than turn a Mac into an iPad. You've got all the hardware you need for an iPad to turn into a Mac. It's just software. That's the only thing. And if I could just have one device that, right now the iPad is better for video thumbnails with the Apple Pencil and the touchscreen and just for photo editing and that kind of thing. It's better at that. So I use my iPad for thumbnails, but as far as live streaming and Final Cut and whether it's audio engineering or software development, you just can do so much more with a Mac thanks to the I/O, and now the chip options they offer are way better, and the software available on Mac and the options they give you in system preferences. It's all there. They just don't feel like porting it over, in which case you could really, really take advantage of all of that M1 hardware on an iPad, and you wouldn't have to carry around two chargers, two separate devices with two separate battery packs. Every time I go through security, I got to pull the iPad and the MacBook out, put them in their separate trays.
Yep.
I would love it if I could just pull one thing out and call it a day.
That would be cool.
If they did that, I would honestly not have a problem with them putting M1 Pro or M1 Max in an iPad. Go for it. Why not? I'll use it. Or throw in some extra Thunderbolt ports, just beef that thing up, go make a 16-inch size, make, spec for spec, make it match my MacBook Pro. I'm all for that. But until the software's there, there's really no point.
So Mike wants to know, do we think Apple would bring it back in-home Wi-Fi? I doubt it.
They should have. I don't know why they got rid of it, but it must have not been selling very well. I thought it was kind of cool. Did you ever have those airport routers?
I did not know.
I had a friend, I never owned one myself, but a friend bought one and basically just turned it into his home Wi-Fi like server, and he could access files on it from different computers in the house. It was really cool. I was like, this is nice.
I know something that me and you have talked about before is Apple being more involved in the home automation space. I wish they would do that. Now, what I really would like to see, now there's been rumor, but I don't know if it's ever going to come to fruition, is a HomePod with a display. That I want. That would be cool to me.
I agree. I think I've noticed a lot of people buying those like Google Hubs, Nest Hub or whatever.
Yep.
And it makes so much perfect sense when you're asking for, recipes, or someone rings the doorbell to just show it right on a little screen. And an iPad is probably too overkill for such basic functions, but Apple has shown they're comfortable selling $300 HomePods, right? So
yeah.
If they're willing to do that, I think that the market has kind of spoken with smart speakers that if you're charging more than $100 for the speaker, it better have a screen. Yeah. And I think Google, I don't know exactly, but I bet Google has had a decent amount of success with those little hubs. And already the HomePod is running a modified version of tvOS instead of iOS now. So I feel like just kind of modifying tvOS a little bit to be like the perfect little kitchen speaker, plus like FaceTime, with center stage.
That would be cool.
That thing would be perfect for the kitchen because you're like, busy working on stuff, but the camera's tracking around with you, and it could have, of course, Apple grade sound quality that would be fantastic. I'm kind of surprised they haven't done it yet, to be frank. I think it's weird that there's just a HomePod mini and there's no regular HomePod.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. It's funny hearing you talk about Apple TV. I remember your whole video ran about the Apple TV remote.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yes. I'm glad they got rid of that thing. I've been tempted to get a new Apple TV. I hate the price and the boxy design. I want a little stick that just plugs in the back.
That yeah, I remember. I'm actually me and you Renee talked about that. I think a couple of years ago,
Mm.
when there was the rumor that Apple would make a Apple TV dongle, and that never came to fruition.
I
But
remember reading a report that said they ditched it because they were worried it would damage their luxury look.
oh,
I was like, "What? You
they have
sell?"
them. They have a mount that plugs in from the bottom. I mean, I think they've been damaged. Their look, their luxury looking gone. Okay, gone. All right.
Yes.
You gotta turn
This
the
is
mouse
the
on its ass to charge it. All right. Come on
this is
now.
the sign of luxury.
Yeah, right. That's not luxury. Okay, Apple. Your luxury looking gone. Okay. You've been lost that. Get out of here.
Right. I'm like, you're saying you're worried about it hurting your brand reputation for luxury while you're selling $200 iPods
Oh,
and
God.
$300 iPads with non-laminated displays, and you're telling
Oh,
me a little stick is going to hurt your brand. Like, get out of here. That was so stupid.
I don't even use my Apple TV no more because number one, I have a smart TV, but other than that, I have consoles that I run everything through now anyway. So
Oh yeah,
I don't even need
sure.
an Apple TV Plus when you have an Xbox or a PlayStation. So did you? I know you had a gaming channel. Do you still game at all?
Unfortunately, no. I
It's
haven't
hard.
made
That's
the
hard when you're
time.
a creator, man. It's so hard. Yeah.
Maybe I should. I sometimes I get really busy and my mind is swamped with things. Maybe Elon Musk has been tweeting that he plays all these games. It helps him unwind. It might be something I should get into. I don't know.
Oh, that's the other thing. You have not purchased the Tesla yet, right?
Oh well,
Oh,
technically,
are you is it on the low low? Okay, okay, I got you.
no. It isn't. It isn't on the low. I've put in an order, but I haven't taken delivery yet.
Oh,
I'm waiting. I'm patiently waiting, but yeah, I'm getting one.
is this the first time that this information been made public?
No, no, I talked about it a
Okay.
few weeks ago, I think. But
So you have ordered the Tesla. Okay.
yeah, I haven't wired the money. I don't own one, but I'm waiting for one, which I'm excited for.
What's the hold up? Did you like spec it out or something, or what's going on?
No, actually, the wait times with Teslas right now are so bad because the
Oh,
demand is so high. There's so
oh.
many people ordering them that if you specifically want a cheaper one, you have to wait a while.
Mm.
Um, if you get a high end one, you don't have to wait very long. So I was like, yeah, no, I don't need like the high performance stuff, and I don't need like the crazy long range. And I opted for basically the cheapest one they sell. So because I work from home, of course, and I don't
Right.
really drive. I mean, I'm driving more actually the more I talk about it, but um, there are days where I don't drive at all, and we've had a sedan, the same sedan for the past like 6 years. I've not run out of cargo space with it. So I like the Model Y and I like the luxury features that the higher end Teslas offer, but I just have to admit they're not really super useful to me.
Right.
Um, so I just opted for basically the cheapest one they sell because, for one, I want to review it for the channel, and also I'm sick of paying for gas, and I'm ready for autopilot and the
I have seen
preheated
you all
seat.
gas prices out there recently, and they make me shocked and in horror. Yes.
How are they where you are? I don't know what it's like out there.
I think we are pretty much either near or over $5 a gallon now,
Oh
and
wow!
you're all at 7, like which is ridiculous. My God, I don't know how y'all do it
You
out there
just
in
look
California.
at the gas prices and it says kidney.
Literally, I don't know how y'all make it out there in Cali, man. Woo.
It's bad. No, it's gotten really bad. But we've been saving up and trying to get one since even before the gas prices went up. This has been the plan for a while. So, of course, like we talked about earlier, trying to prioritize overhead and not
Yeah.
balloon expenses. So we're not doing a loan. We're not leasing the car. We tried to do it as responsibly as possible, and make sure we didn't have any debt and save up money and have an emergency fund and prioritize investments. So we're being careful with it. But yeah, it's still by far the most expensive thing I've ever bought,
Yo,
aside from my
somebody
house.
kick him out of here. Kick him out of the chat. Why are you here? Get out. Get out. Come on, buddy. Are
420
you serious? Get out.
gas in Utah.
Kick him
No,
out
I
of here.
was, I was hearing about people complaining in like Texas. They were like, "Oh, it's over $3 a gallon." I was like,
That's it.
What?
That's it. Out of here. Oh my
It's like it's
god.
been that here for 10 years. Oh,
Oh,
it's horrible.
it is horrible.
Yeah.
So when you were in Chicago that day, where were you on your way to? I know you were on a train.
Yeah, I basically Louise's father-in-law kind of surprised her on her birthday with a cross-country train trip, and
Ooh.
we weren't really sure if we were going to be able to do it because um, he told us about it like 4 days before the trip began. He was like, "Hey," he was taking the trip regardless. He was like, "So I'm." He was visiting in town, and he was like, "Hey, I'm going to go to New York City on a train, and if you want, you can come with me." We were like, "When?" And it's like, "Monday." We were like, wow, okay, I'm not sure." And we kind of looked over our schedules and was like, "I don't think there's any Apple events coming up. So I think we can do it." And he was kind of like, "Whoa, okay, really? You can?" And we are like, "Yeah, I think we're down." So we uh we agreed to it, and there was like a stop in Chicago for about 7 hours, and then after that 7 hours we hop onto a different train that took us to New York City, and then we spent a couple days there and flew back to Las Vegas for my birthday, which we had bought the plane tickets for Vegas months ago. So that was kind of the whole holdup. If we weren't sure if we were going to be able to make the train trip or not, because we had this Vegas trip coming up. We got tickets to Vegas for really cheap, so that helped. But so it was a lot of traveling. We went from the Bay Area to Denver, Colorado, and the Rockies, and then to Chicago, to New York City, to Vegas, all
Ooh,
within like a week. It
dang.
was pretty busy.
That's a pretty damn good train ride, though. I'm pretty sure you all enjoyed that. Wow.
It was fun. I think we're going to do it again this summer. Um, I've never traveled by train before. It's quite a blast.
I
It's
haven't either. I gotta try that one time.
Oh, really?
No,
I mean it's definitely not the fastest way to get somewhere.
you're right.
So if you're I would say train trips are more about like enjoying the journey, less
Yeah.
about the destination.
As long as I can
So
sleep, I'm good.
yeah, it's like way more spacious and comfortable than a plane.
Oh,
That's for sure.
that's good.
And it's way quieter. Like I didn't need to use noise cancellation. It's quieter than a car. It's quieter than a plane. It's a lot of the time I could not even tell the train was in motion because of how smooth it was.
Wow.
And they give at least the way we did it, we got a little roomette, and it costs a lot, probably a bit more than a plane ticket would, but you're getting 3 meals a day, and you have a bed, and you have a closed cabin, and um, it's just you can walk around. They have an observation car where you can just watch the world go by, and you miss a lot of that when you fly. You don't get to see what you're traveling by. And there's stops, and you can get off for a couple seconds and come back on and just get some fresh air. So it was a new experience to me, but I was really impressed with it, and I'd happily do it again.
Awesome. All right,
Yeah.
I got one more question for you, then I'll get you out of here on this. I remember I wanted to ask you earlier.
Yes.
So there's been discussion lately about creators taking a break from YouTube and how taking a break from YouTube can hurt your channel.
Mm.
In one of my coffee talk rooms that I host on Clubhouse, we were talking about how a lot of creators feel like YouTube can be better about promoting the idea of taking a break from your YouTube channel, because I'm pretty sure,
Oh
as you
yeah.
know, if you take a break from your channel, you're going to take a hit in views and all that stuff, and maybe revenue, because people are not going to watch your content as much if you're not making anything. But
Right.
as also, as you know, if you plan accordingly and have videos ready to go while you're on break, then you can kind of make up for some of that if you plan accordingly.
Yeah.
So just want to get your thoughts on, do you feel like today YouTube does enough to make it comfortable for you to take a break, to step away from your channel when you need to? Or do you feel like YouTube as a platform can do more for you and other creators to promote the idea of taking a break?
Oh, I definitely don't think they do much now already. I mean, just I don't know. It's probably a very hard job, which I think it's really easy to hate on YouTube because of all the things they do wrong, but
Yeah.
it's also easy to take for granted that this is possible to make a living out of, and that we can just throw some data on a website and then money shows up, like that's an
Right.
amazing thing. And I'm very grateful for their existence. And I'm glad Google bought them and allowed them to grow their business so that there's no hosting fees. I don't think people realize how rare that is.
Right.
Um, you can post 8K HDR 60 frames a second video that's 48 hours long, and YouTube's like, "Yep, I'll hold it forever for free." Um, that's an amazing thing, but definitely one of the biggest struggles of making YouTube a full-time gig is, yeah, there's no paid time off, there's no health coverage, there's no vacation. Well, I mean, you can take a vacation if you want, but like you said, you're going to feel it, and it hurts, and oftentimes it's hard to come back, because very quickly people will just be like, "Oh, well, he's not posting anymore, so I'm going to leave." And when he comes back, you're like, "Yeah, I can live without him." So I don't know exactly what they could do. If I don't know how profitable they are already. I know that they've kind of struggled with turning a huge profit, depending with advertisers getting ticked off and content creators getting ticked off and demonetization and all that. And um, there's people always frustrated with YouTube, especially with the bots in the comment section. Oh my god, there's
Oh
so
my.
many. But it's a huge mess and there's all this work to be done. But if there was some way, I don't know exactly how it would work, but if you reached a point maybe when your channel was generating a certain amount where you could earn kind of PTO, or some kind of vacation time, and just say like, well, if you've performed this well or made this much money after a certain amount of months, we'll give you like 2 weeks of estimated, here's what you would have made if you stayed active. Or maybe the algorithm could be generous when you come back and say like, let's recommend when a guy takes a break for a month or something and comes back, let's push that video a little harder, just to kind of remind people he's back. And it also could open up some new channels for discovery, when someone takes a break, because I do think that's very, very important for mental health and uh, making sure you have a fresh perspective on whatever you're creating. And it's good to take breaks. Breaks are, I have a lot of friends in my personal life that I talk to a lot about. Just I don't think you know when to take a good break. Just I think you're stretching yourself too thin, and that you're going to pay the mental health price for that, and your content isn't going to be as good because you don't have a fresh perspective, and you need to recharge mentally. Um, I wish I had a good like suggestion of something easy they could do. I'm very curious of your ideas because I think about this a lot, and I don't have a good solution.
I have a follow-up question.
Yeah.
So you just suggested maybe like YouTube having some type of program where if you make enough revenue, or maybe you generate enough watch hours or something, that they can have some type of system where they pay creators a certain amount of money,
Hmm.
such sort of like PTO, or,
Hmm.
or they have like the algorithm push their content when they come back.
Yeah.
My follow-up question to you is, knowing the fact that anybody who is making money on YouTube is essentially an independent contractor and
Right.
they are running their own business,
Yeah.
do you feel like that should be YouTube's responsibility to make it easier for creators to take a break, when in actuality, since the creators are their own business owners, it's directly really up more to the creators to figure out when they want to walk away and make that doable per se.
Yeah. Well, that's definitely the tough call because um long term, I don't think it really makes much sense for them to pivot away from independent contractors. I think if they tried to make everyone employees, it would be a huge mess of what you got to provide for health coverage. Or
Oh no, they that's not even an option, right?
no, they could not. There's no way.
I think most creators would want to keep their independent contractor status anyway.
Right, right. I would too, personally. I think it would just make things more messy. So I don't think, yeah, I don't think it's necessarily like, it's tough because I've been doing this for several years now, so I get the concept of it's good to take breaks. But yeah, at the same time, it is on us, like you said. It's not really YouTube's responsibility to ensure that we get paid a certain amount. They're kind of like, hey, you're gonna get paid when you help us out. If you don't help us out, we're not gonna pay you. So I get that from the business mindset. Um, yeah, that's tough. It's it would be, I can acknowledge from the creator's perspective, it would be very nice. It would be really nice if they did want to help out. But I yeah, I think part of the problem is just there's so many channels, there's so many people,
Yep.
and they're all in different countries and different parts of life, and they're all in such drastically different variables that YouTube has to account for. It's really, really difficult to find like a solution that could be applicable to a wide range of people, because any kind of benefit you switch on like that and just say, hey, we're going to offer PTO or something after a certain number of years, that's billions of dollars basically down the drain for them. Um, at best, at best it's an investment in the platform that encourages creators to keep coming back. But kind of from YouTube's perspective, it's like we're kind of enabling people to stop posting, which doesn't help us. Maybe long term it's good for them, but in the short term, they got to look at what generates the most income. So yeah, that's a really tough question, because I don't know what they can do.
So, so the general consensus right now is that YouTube doesn't really do enough to promote the idea of creators taking a break. But
Mm,
at the beginning of your argument, you brought up a very excellent point. YouTube places our videos in a space where anybody in the world can access them, and that is no charge to us. Even though
yeah,
people argue about the 45% ad cut, but I'm not even talking about that. I'm just talking
sure.
about the fact that we upload content, like you said, even in 8K, whatever it is, however long the video is, we can upload that content to YouTube and they charge us nothing.
Right.
Not to mention the fact that YouTube has to maintain servers, which they usually are, maintain them 24 hours a day,
Hmm.
7 days a week, keep them always up.
They're not free.
For free, yeah, to us, and we don't have to pay for any of this. And I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure that is very, very costly, especially when you talk about all over the world. Because again, as you mentioned, there's about creators that are creating all over the world, which means
Uh-huh.
YouTube has to have servers literally all over the world.
Yeah. It's huge.
So the fact that we don't pay for upload, we don't we theoretically don't pay for YouTube to maintain our servers 24 hours a day, 7 days a week,
Hmm.
and we can build whole businesses off of the content that we create for YouTube,
Hmm.
and we can still make money outside of YouTube without them taking a cut via merchandise,
Right. Yeah.
affiliate marketing,
Uh-huh.
and other things like that. That YouTube can't take any piece of because it's outside of YouTube.
Mm.
I just feel like I understand where creators are coming from about YouTube, maybe being able to do more to foster taking a break. But me personally, I feel like creators aren't appreciative enough of the opportunity that YouTube presents them, especially given the fact
Yeah.
that at the end of the day, every one of us making money on this platform, we are all independent contractors. Because our YouTube channels, in essence, are our businesses.
Yeah. No,
And
they
it
are.
is not YouTube's responsibility to
Hmm.
tell you how to run your business. That
Hmm.
is on you as a creator. So if you want to take a break, you're more than welcome to take a break. Because that's the other thing about this, Drew, as you know, there's no permission, there's no boss or manager that you report to because you are the boss, you are the CEO.
Right.
So if you want to walk away and take a break, you can do that. You just have to prepare accordingly, unless you don't prepare, and then you are going to lose that revenue or that attention. So
Right.
that's
Just
just
like
me.
any business.
Yeah,
If
not
you were
right,
a
right?
if you were an independent business, you couldn't just expect,
Yes.
like, if you were a boss at McDonald's or something, you were like, I want to take a break. I'm kind of tired. So can I just get the money I would have made? It's like, no, you can't.
Oh,
There are a lot of employee positions that offer things like that,
right.
which is nice, but it comes at the cost of control. Now you're abiding by someone else's schedule. Someone asks you to come in, you got to show up, and you got to abide by their schedule, and you got to do things their way. You don't have a lot of control. So yeah, it's a give and take type thing. So I personally, even with the lack of health coverage and the lack of paid time off, I would still rather do this than work for some other guy and have to abide by his schedule and get paid time off. Because I like having control over my life and schedule that way. But I know a lot of people that probably wouldn't side with me on that. I know people that have a harder time being, like self motivated, or
Yeah.
um, it's easier for them to just say, "Tell me what to do and how to do it, and I'll do it." Don't expect me to come up with my own solution, or If you wait for me to just become inspired, then I'm just going to stay in bed all day. So there's people like that, and
Oh, yeah.
it would be nice if YouTube could do something, but like you said, it's such a large scale application if they did, and already I think it's not appreciated enough that this is a thing that we can just post content to and not think about it. Frankly, I don't think the 45% cut is that unfair, considering all the uh all the hosting they do for free
Don't say that
and the
out loud, man.
backlog.
Don't say that out loud because there's gonna be a lot of people that don't agree with you, but I agree with
I
you
know
on
there's
that.
I get it. Um, but I just mean go on a different platform and find one that's gonna give you CPMs like this,
Mm.
or push your video to as many people as YouTube does and then reimburse you the way YouTube does. I'm
How
not
much they
saying it's
paying on TikTok?
perfect.
How much are they paying on TikTok, y'all? We've been talking about that a lot lately too. How much is TikTok paying creators? Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, I don't know much about TikTok, to be honest, but I have a feeling it's not quite as black and white as
I
the
know
YouTube.
enough to know that they aren't paying creators shit. So they make very little money compared to what they could be making on YouTube. So yeah.
Well, it's way more difficult to figure out how, right? Because just the I was talking with Randy about this the other day, but just the format of on YouTube, you have this wide selection of content in your recommendations or your landing page,
Hmm.
and then you see the thumbnails and you click the one you want to watch, and then it counts how long you're watching that.
Right.
TikTok is throwing all of that out, and it's just autoplay, and as soon as one video ends, the next one starts, and if you're uninterested, you skip to the next one. How do you incorporate ads into that and figure out who should get paid what? Because the ad is just playing in between little clips. So no one is like actively choosing, I want to watch that one, I want to watch that one. So
Yeah.
the YouTube format is just so much more friendly to figuring out, oh, okay, pay this guy this much, pay this guy this much. Whereas TikTok, it's kind of a blur. It's like, I think we pay him, but the watch time is in seconds instead of minutes. So
Yeah. It's a different beast. It's definitely an entirely
a
different beast.
totally different beast. And I, I, I've tried really, really hard with Twitch. I was on there for years and
Yeah.
tried to get people to move, and I preferred it in so many ways. And yet there was still a bunch of people that were just like, "Nat, I don't want to move." So yeah, it's even though YouTube has a higher cut, a lot of the time, or doesn't have as many supportive options as Twitch may have, then I still make more on YouTube live streaming than I did on Twitch. So
Wow.
it's
Hmm.
it's it's kind of how I feel about the iOS App Store situation. I don't know where
I
you
was
fall on
just,
that,
oh
but
yeah, I was just gonna say. I think me and John Proctor were talking about this a couple of years ago. When the whole argument came up about Apple taking 30%, and I think we both agree, like that's actually not bad when
yeah,
you consider
it's,
how much money you can make on there. Yeah.
it's pretty standard, honestly.
Yeah, and it's standard, right?
Right, and back when Steve Jobs announced that the audience clapped. Everyone was happy. They were like, "Wow, 30%." Now everyone's like, "Oh, that's way too much." But compare it if there was definitive proof of like a thriving app market with well-paid developers and uh, a happy customer base that's spending tons of money, and the cut was substantially lower, I would agree. It'd be like if the Google store was bringing in more money and had tons of people happy to use the apps on that market, and they were doing 10%, I would say, okay, you have a point. You have evidence of this working. You're saying it would work better if Apple did it. We don't really have that though, because the iOS App Store brings in way more revenue than anybody else, despite being a smaller chunk of the overall market. People are far more comfortable to spend money on that platform because Apple created a safe, secure system that everyone's happy with. And now people say, "Oh, well, they have an unfair advantage." It's like, well, Try to set up your own app
I'm about
store.
to say,
Tell
it's
me
the
how.
same thing that we were just arguing about YouTube.
Uh-huh.
Apple has to have like servers all over the world that stay up 24/7 to host your store.
Mm,
And then they have to have the server space to host your, well, depending on how your app is set up, either Apple has the server space, maybe you have the server space, but you have to have that space. They you have to allocate that space on their app store servers to host your app so people can
right.
get to it and all that. It like again, it's just people like I understand the gripe, but I don't think people understand the scale at which these companies have these stores and these platforms and
Yeah.
the scale in which they operate. Not to mention all the different laws across the different countries that they have to abide by as far as tax laws and localization and all this. Oh, dude. Like some of the stuff that these
Absurd.
companies have to deal with across the globe will make a lot of individuals head spin. And I don't think people appreciate all that stuff. It's a lot to it.
Right. I think that's where a lot of it stems from, is just not really being grateful for what has been built, and people just assuming that was going to always be there. Well, of course there's an app store, whatever, but look at all this money they're making from it. They should make less money. It's really easy to just sit at the side and say that and not think about all the work that went into it. Both for Apple and YouTube, same thing. It's like there's a lot going on behind the scenes that we don't think about.
Not at all. So Joseph actually brings up an interesting point. The no healthcare coverage argument that you were making about YouTube not supporting healthcare is not a YouTube thing; it's an America thing. So yeah, you are right about
True.
that. Yeah, that has nothing to do with YouTube and other countries don't have that issue. So
Right.
good point, man. Good bringing that up.
That's a good point.
As the DB says, Apple has no real competition in the starting the show. What is the Google Play Store a joke to you? Like the Google Play Store is literally over there.
I was gonna say, I don't even think they're most of the market.
That's the other thing. Like Apple and iPhone make up what 20% of the market at this point. I'm like, it's a low number, you all.
Yeah, it's not over 50. I don't remember exactly what it is, but it's definitely not most of the world. I think it's a majority in a few countries, but in the countries it's the majority of, it's like 55, 60. It's not like there's no competition. In the US, I still agree. There's
In the US, Android has the market share, man.
Yeah.
Now, Apple is more popular in the US, but Android still has the market share in the US.
Right. Yeah, it's I haven't reached, and they also lowered the revenue cut on
Yeah, they did.
the small businesses, which they did. I didn't think they had to do, but they did it. So
I think they are starting to feel a little bit of pressure from the EU with the regulations and how the EU is changing things. So it is kind of forcing Apple to make some changes, not a lot, but they have to make some changes if they want to comply.
Well, I'm all in favor of them doing whatever they feel like doing. If they decided, hey, we want to lower the cut to 10% for everyone, I'd be like, okay, it's your call, it's your store. You can do what you want. I just think that Apple's success would be criticized regardless.
Oh,
because here's how I think of it. Like, okay, you're saying, because here's the argument I kept bringing up: Nintendo, Sony, Microsoft, they all have 30% cuts.
Yep.
And they all require pretty much all the games on their platforms to go through their approval.
Yep.
They have complete control over it, just like Apple. People's argument was, well, the difference is those companies sell their consoles at a loss. And I'm like, Apple doesn't sell their hardware at a loss. And I'm like, so let's play hypothetically for a second. Apple decides, okay, we've made so much money on our hardware, we're just going to waive all of the service fees of the App Store. Now we take a 0% cut. How do you think Google's going to feel that they can't compete with that because they don't bring in as much profits from their hardware? So they're like, well, Apple can afford to price it at 0% cut, but we can't. That gives Apple an unfair advantage. So regardless of what the revenue cut is, Apple's going to have some kind of advantage here. They're going to have either money coming from a different source, or they're going to say, we can have a lower cut than everybody else and we can afford it. Basically, we can price out the competition. Because if developers are like, well, Google takes 15 or 30% and Apple takes 0, I guess I'm going to go on Apple. Like I'll get a higher cut of the revenue. If Google decides, or Epic decides, oh, well, we can't do that because we'll lose too much money, you'll still be mad at Apple. You'll still say they have too much power. So it's like whether or not they lose money on the hardware, I don't think is the issue. I think they've just figured out how to build a successful brand, and people are torn on how to handle it. They're like, they seem to make too much money. How do we stop that?
Yeah, I feel like Apple is a target just because they are the most popular, successful company out there, and I'm just like, really?
Yeah.
Like that? Just because they're successful? I mean, isn't that the whole point of building a company up to the level that Apple has built their company up to be
Yeah.
successful? And that makes them a target? Like, oh man, it's crazy.
Yeah. If it's not them, it'll be someone else. Someone else.
Right, exactly. If Apple's not up there, they're just going to be replaced by somebody else.
Whoever's at the top will be too powerful.
Yeah.
So we just keep punching whoever's at the top.
It's a vicious cycle.
Hey, I'm cool with the EU forcing Apple to switch to Type-C, though.
Yeah,
I'll take that.
Let's go. It's not going to happen, but I'm good with it. Or Apple will do the same thing they've been doing before and just have a Lightning to USB-C cable and they're a bunch of bullshit. God, it's annoying.
I know. It's like, I mean, if you want to force something that directly helps me, okay, but
I swear, like the charging situation in the Apple ecosystem is the most un-Apple thing ever. You have Lightning, you have USB Type-C.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Apple Watch is kind of an outlier, but you have inductive charging. Like, bro,
but now you have MagSafe.
Like, come on,
the MacBooks. Like, so you have basically every platform is charging with something else.
Right.
It's a big mess.
It's ridiculous.
I think Apple would be the company to figure out one port.
You would think so, right? I mean, we're talking about Apple here, but no, they've made a big ass mess of it all. Come on, Apple, figure it out, man. Damn.
I agree.
Oh my
God. I don't know why it's so complicated. People ask me like what I would do if I was CEO for a day. That's always my answer. I would just Type-C everything. We're gonna ban Lightning.
And people, the number one argument against Apple getting rid of Lightning is that Apple makes royalties off of it. They're not making that damn much. They'll hurt them if they get rid of it. Come on now.
Look around. People are not using that many third-party Lightning accessories. There's like mostly people are using AirPods and they're using the Lightning cable their phone came with. They're not using these gas station pink Lightning cables. Mm-hmm. It's like Apple probably makes a couple mil on that. And again, if your made for iPhone program was so important, why would they get rid of Lightning on the iPads then? They could have kept it. You know, in the 2017, I think it was, iPad Pros came out, they had Lightning 3.0. It was a faster version of Lightning that could handle higher bit rate and higher data. And they got rid of that. They switched to Type-C on the iPads, and the iPhones still use Lightning 2.0, not 3.0. So they actively developed a version of Lightning that supported faster data speeds and didn't want to keep using it for some reason. Because they were like, Type-C makes more sense on the iPad. Every argument they gave for that, I can apply to the iPhone, because you could do everything an iPad uses a Type-C for on a Lightning port. You could do external monitors. You can import footage. You can plug in audio. Everything this port does can be done with Lightning 3.0. But they actively chose to change it because, there's more USB-C accessories out there. Want to make it easy. It's like, well, keep going.
Yeah, please make it easier. Can we get down to one cable? If I have multiple Apple devices and Drew does too, we should only need one damn cable.
That's what I love about using the studio display right now is I just have one cable plugged into my MacBook and it's charging it and it's doing data and it's
boom.
It's the best port. I say, you can have devices like AirPods or watches that are portless and inductive charging because they're small. But if you're going to make a device with a port, give it the best port. And right now, I don't think the portless argument holds up. It definitely doesn't support Apple's e-waste concerns.
No, it doesn't. We have seen numerous things that contradict Apple trying to be more environmentally friendly, but I won't get into all that today.
Yeah, they're too chicken to go portless at this point. They could have done it years ago and they still haven't. So
there were rumors that they wanted to do it with iPhone 10.
I know, I remember that. And I used to believe that. I was like, well, you don't need to switch to Type-C because we're going portless soon. I did not predict we would still be having a lightning port in 2022.
Right.
If I would have known that, I would have said, no, if you're going to plan a port for this long, you should switch to Type C. Right now, they're probably fighting with each other internally and they can't agree. So they just leave it the same. Like, someone says portless, someone says Type C. They're like, well, you guys can't agree on anything. So I guess we'll just keep lightning. It's like, no, that's even worse.
Yeah. Just like this reminds me of the argument that we were making a few weeks ago about Apple not integrating RCS into iMessage.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Everybody's blaming Apple for the poor quality for Android users or whatever. I'm like, Apple has no financial incentive to switch to RCS. None. They're not doing it.
No. And there's all kinds of standards that they don't. I mean, I still have HDMI 2.0 on my laptop. There's there's
Yeah.
all kinds of things that they could switch to a newer standard, but very little incentive. And I thought RCS was having a hard time with certain carriers supporting it, right?
Not anymore. I think all the major carriers here in the US, they support it now, and I think most of the
see.
newer Androids have it on board too. So it's
Gotcha.
out there,
It's out there.
but Apple's not going to support it. No.
Honestly, it's a bit of a hot take. I think Apple should make iMessage for Android.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I think I don't think it's that bad an idea anymore. I used to.
That is interesting coming out of your mouth. That is very interesting.
It's not just because I might switch to Android in the future.
Oh, you got no ulterior motive. You got no ulterior motive. Oh my God. You just said two things in the last 20 seconds that just blew everybody's mind. First he was iMessage on Android, and now he's all switches to Android. This is the Apple sheep here, y'all. What is happening here? Who are you? And what did you do with Drew? Oh my Lord.
I realized if they did launch it on Android, everyone who downloaded it would have to make an Apple ID.
Yeah.
And they could restrict it to only work with iCloud messages, and they could easily get a bunch more iCloud service revenue just because, it's not SMS texting. So you got full-size images and high-quality videos that you send back and forth. And, the options on Android are pretty bleak right now. You're basically stuck with Meta choosing your messaging app of choice or Telegram or whatever. And I think iMessage is just so streamlined and simple, and they could probably win a ton of people over if they became like the dominant texting platform, and everyone who texts each other on Android is still got an Apple ID, and they can easily upsell them on either higher iCloud or let them know about Apple Music, or, sneak the ecosystem into all these Android phones. If Tim Cook is all about getting into more services, I don't think that option is terrible.
Well, the reason why I think they have not done that up until this point is because they will lose a crap ton of iPhone revenue if they put iMessage on Android.
Yeah, that's true.
Probably more than they would gain having iMessage on Android and then charging for it or whatever they want to do, or trying to get people into services. And the other big thing about iMessage on Android, Drew, is that I'm pretty sure, as you know, a lot of people buy iPhone because they don't want to have to download a third-party app to do natural native functions. And iMessage on Android will be its own independent app, and not many people will probably download it.
True. Yeah, I still think it'd be interesting. It'd be kind of funny.
I mean, I remember 4 years ago, John Redinger told me if iMessage was on Android, he would switch. He would have an Android full stop. So there are people out there who would definitely embrace that. I just don't know if it'll be enough for them for it to warrant it even being a feasible for Apple. But
true. I'd be curious. I'd love to see some studies on that as well. How many people would switch to Android if they could have iMessage over there? I don't know. It might be surprisingly high.
Because I remember, I think there was a report last year that there were, in 2013, there were internal talks at Apple between Eddie Q and them about bringing iMessage to Android. But they nixed it because of the whole losing iPhone revenue. They like, no, maybe not.
Yeah. Well, I figured because as time goes on, iPhones and Androids are going to start all looking the same. They're all starting to blur together for people. So why, in particular, someone would go with an Android over an iPhone? Is it a camera? Is it a display? It's definitely not going to be the years of support they get. in updates. That's not it. So it'd be interesting. I wonder if that data has changed at all in recent history. I don't know.
Yeah, Samsung is now supporting their Android phone for 4 years.
That's good.
Yeah.
It's not as good, but it's better.
Yeah, they've definitely gotten better with that for sure.
Yeah. It's a step in the right direction.
Yeah. I think I said it before, but I think the parity between iOS and Android is it's a lot more even than what it was 5 years ago.
Sure.
I don't think you're really missing out if you use either or anymore. I mean, they're at this point they're almost the same damn thing. They just go about it differently, more or less.
Yeah, it's like different colors.
Yeah, literally.
What's your favorite color, iOS or Android?
Basically, that's literally how close they are today. Yep.
Yeah, that's how I felt the last few times I've used Android. Is like I can live with this. It's not bad. It's just I prefer the ecosystem support. That's what keeps me. It's not just iMessage. It's like the AirDrop stuff and the one email, one password. You unlock everything through that, and they sync between devices.
I was just talking about this on a stream the other day. It's not like I have an S22 Ultra right here, and this is my favorite phone out right now. I use it more than my iPhone, but I can never go away fully from my iPhone. Not because my iPhone is better than this, because it's not. But nothing is messing with that Apple ecosystem. Like you said, from iMessage to AirDrop to iCloud to my Apple Card. I mean, there's just so many things that have me in the ecosystem that I just can't step away from.
Right.
So it's not even how good the iPhone is anymore. It's how good that ecosystem is that is going to keep me in for the foreseeable future.
Yep. No, I'm with you. I would love to try something else, but I just can't find anything else that would rival that.
Not even close. And it's not even close, Drew. It's nobody out there is even close right now. Which is crazy because Apple's been doing it for like 10 years. We've been doing this and nobody can close.
Yeah. I wish someone would try. I really think Google could. I think they're in the best position because they own and operate Android, whereas Samsung is trying to do this mixture approach.
Yeah.
But Samsung usually makes the far better hardware. So if Google could step up in the hardware department, and based on what I've heard, people have had fairly bad software experiences with the Pixel phones. So it's like they're butchering it, but I feel like they're in the right position. Like you could rival an ecosystem. If Google's making their own silicon now, it's not very good, but they're doing it. It's like if they could develop pro applications and pro software for their Chromebooks powered by their own silicon, update Android, and just have this clean ecosystem. And I use YouTube. I'm already I got a Gmail account, so they could combine a lot of this stuff. I think if they just put in the time and effort that Apple does in the hardware and the ecosystem features. I just feel like they're not trying very hard.
I remember when my first year on YouTube, I made a video titled, I think Google is the next Apple or something along those lines. And I was talking about how Google is the company that I thought at the time was best positioned to rival Apple in their ecosystem.
Yeah.
And you're right. I still think that's the case today. Like Google is right there, but Google has commitment issues, as we all know. So because of their commitment issues, they probably won't ever get there. But if they were more committed to the cause, I think they could get there, or at least approach something to the level that Apple is doing. Maybe not equal it, but they can approach it. But they have commitment issues.
They're like a player, they can't stay in one relationship.
Yeah.
They're on their 6th divorce, They're like, oh, Nexus, no, Huawei, oh, Nest, oh, Pixel, they can't commit to just one thing.
Ooh, Stadia. Oh, no, not Stadia.
Stadia was one of those things that felt like they had killed it by the time it was announced. I was like, as soon as Google said, we'll use artificial intelligence to guess the player's movements when they're playing a video game, I was like, you've given up, haven't you? You're going to use AI as your cop-out for lower latency. AI will predict that you're going to move your gun that way and shoot this way. It's like, you don't know what you're doing, do you?
It's that on a TV thing. Google Plus. I don't know about all that, but I did enjoy Google Plus. That was a nice little network.
I did too. I tried. I gave it an honest try, but no one else did, I guess.
Yeah, Google Plus was good, but they should have stuck with it. They should have hung on to it. Much like they should have hung on to Hangouts. I don't know why the hell they got rid of Hangouts.
There's a lot of Google things I wish they would just.
Yeah,
I honestly really enjoyed the Nexus 6P when it came out. Do you remember that one?
yeah.
I
Never had it,
I
but
thought
yeah,
that was a solid phone. Like when I reviewed it way back when.
I had
And
the
then they're like, yeah, let's try something else.
I had the Galaxy Nexus. That was a good one too.
Oh yeah, I had a friend with one of those. See, you just commitment. That's the thing.
Seriously, Google had commitment issues. I don't understand it. I don't know.
I think if you got like a high-end Apple executive in a Google chair, you know, like Phil Schiller, Johnny Ive, if Google picked up one of them and just said, you know, we want to have a Apple-esque ecosystem, I'd be like, let's come up with a really well optimized video editing application or audio editing application, and let's start developing high-end silicon that's similar to the Apple ARM architecture and build that into Chromebooks and into their own desktop OS. And then I don't know.
He's not wrong. He's not wrong.
Right. Samsung's probably doing a better job, though, to be honest.
Yeah. Samsung, I think the one thing that told them back is that number one, they don't make their own chips, and number two, they make their own chip, but we can't have them in the US or whatever. I don't know what's wrong with that. And number two, they don't have complete control of Android, and when they tried to make their own OS with Tizen, that didn't go too well.
Right. So they're still at the liberty of whatever Google.
Yeah. But Samsung makes amazing hardware, though. I mean, I love my S20 Ultra. I love it. It's amazing.
I would argue Samsung probably makes the most impressive hardware in the mobile industry, because even if you love your iPhone, guess who made the display?
Samsung. Hey,
right.
You gotta be careful what you say on your channel, Drew. You're gonna get canceled over there, bro.
Oh, I was canceled a long time ago. I'm good.
Oh man.
No, it's true. Like, I always thought I remember reviewing the S8 back when the iPhone 7 was the newest iPhone, and I was just like, dude, this is next level. Like, I don't want to go back to my iPhone now because I've tasted Samsung. So I think they've got the solid hardware, and just not that they're probably, if I had to buy an Android right now, I'd probably get a Samsung, to be honest. I saw the S22 when it came out, the Plus especially. I was like, the one size bezel all the way around.
Yeah, look good.
I dig it. I like it. I've been tempted, but
but you're like, nope.
Nope. I guess I need that iMessage, huh?
Gotta have it. Oh man, I know we could probably talk all day and night, but I don't want to keep you from anything, man. So
we better be careful. I'll keep talking.
And plus, I'm not trying to have the weed come from me, man. I'm not about that life. I don't want that smoke. No. I don't want the weed coming from me, man.
Thanks, YouTube, for letting us stream for so long.
Right, and not pay a dime. I love it. I love what we can do on YouTube. And I mean, because of YouTube, I met you. I mean, I wouldn't have met you if it weren't for YouTube.
That's true. There's all kinds of connections I wouldn't have made without it.
I just need creators to understand how good we have it with YouTube today, especially during the pandemic. I mean, do you know how many more people were live streaming because of the pandemic via YouTube?
Oh yeah, tons more.
Without YouTube, you might be doing it, but not as well as we could do it with YouTube. You're not doing half the stuff that we do without YouTube today. So.
Correct. There's all kinds of problems, and I'll point them out myself, but I don't think they get enough appreciation for what they've built. So
they don't.
I'm very happy about that. Thank you, Google.
Yeah, shout out to Google and shout out to YouTube for building a platform that we can communicate with each other, build businesses, and change our lives. I mean, I was able to change careers a few months ago because of YouTube, and I mean, Drew is
awesome.
And Drew is a full-time creator because of YouTube. I mean, YouTube has been amazing. So,
let's hope it doesn't change.
Let's hope so.
Let's hope we still have this for the next 10 years.
That'll be great. I think Google is good as long as they don't get complacent, which they seem like they're not. So
for sure,
I think they're in good hands.
Yeah.
But I appreciate y'all hanging out for this random live. We've been here for 2 hours and 15 minutes. I didn't think it would go this long, but yeah, we haven't talked in a while, so we were overdue.
Yeah, we were due. It's well overdue.
And I appreciate you letting me know that you can hang, man. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And we will have to, I'm gonna have to get you on the vidIQ podcast sometime, man, so we can have a chat about content creation and all that good
Oh,
stuff.
yeah. That might be fun. Yeah.
Oh, definitely. But you all, I will see y'all back here tomorrow night for the lounge. For Drew, I am Viper. Until the next time, people, this your boy Viper, the man about tech. I know what you're about to do. You know where to find me. So come back for more.